And 3, 2, 1. Live for, thankfully, a last-minute salvation, because I'm Adam, and I did not really want to do Thirsty Sword Lesbians today. Or really
Live.
ever, to be honest.
Live from the world of darkness. It's Wednesday night. And welcome to
this is gonna be beautiful.
I have to say,
You have to say what? You can't just leave us on that.
Troy, I'm trying to find the fucking stream. I'm sorry.
So,
this is why you prepare, Magos.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. I'm pretty sure that the one person in there probably can confirm that a little bit of the earlier stream was also in there, because I did a little quick run, but I didn't announce it because I'm a potato head. So that's probably in there. But for those wondering, we're actually talking about a good game for, not just for once. We've done that a couple times, but we're going to be
usually
talking
when
about...
I'm here.
Not always.
It's like I'm like the good book fairy. Like I bring you wonderful things.
Okay, we're gonna press X to down on that, because you also gave us Changing Breeds, and also on top of that, I do have 2 videos ready to edit in the pipeline, and I've done autistic analysis videos, and besides Complete Warrior, the books we've been doing were mostly okay.
Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, we're doing Promethean the Created, which I don't think is the least focused aspect of the Chronicles of Darkness. But it's like a C-list, or it'd be the equivalent of the people you put on the Avengers back in the day, where you were like, well, they make enough to actually be relevant, and it's nice to have them on a team, but they just can't sell a book. That's kind of the point of Promethean.
Funnily enough, they fall in there with Mummy. They fall in there with Mummy, the other
Mummy is
semi-undead.
Yeah. Mummy is a great book, and I highly recommend you at least give it a read at some point, because it has a fantastic premise in terms of how the game is supposed to be ran.
And also on top of that, it has a very different playstyle. Usually with World of Darkness, you get more powerful as you progress. Opposite problem. You get weaker as you go along, but that's kind of the point, because your powers are needed to solve a problem, or what's more accurate to say, solve a mystery. Your mystery.
And the more you dilly-dally, the less
less power you have, which means the less likely you are to actually achieve what you want to.
Mainly because Mummy is a pretty high power game.
Mummies at the start can like say words, and the skies can open up, and like biblical plagues will come forth from your mouth. Like,
if you have a terrible group that you want to get revenge on,
have them wake up a mummy.
Yeah.
Like a mummy that wakes up. They even specify in the book that shortly after waking up, a mummy is basically a mindless monster that will just rip and tear through whatever is disturbed in sleep.
By the way, it's the law of averages for text picks. Yeah. I mean, because Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand, I didn't like that much, but it's a key 90s aspect.
Okay, I intentionally picked those books because they were bad. Like, that was the whole point of Changing Breeds and Dirty Secrets of the Black Hand and Beast, is that they were bad books. That said, the Night Horrors Beast book at least gave us a few fun things.
Yeah, also the heroes were at least interesting. And then you did redeem yourself by showing me, what was it, Wicked Dead?
Wicked Dead is a fantastic book. It's one of the best of the Night Horrors books.
And if you hear mouth noises, viewers, that's just because remember that one time the stream got delayed like 20 minutes? It's a similar reason. I have dinner, so if you'll hear it occasionally.
Anyway,
basically, he's got food.
All right. Anyway, let's get to the
actual book. So first off,
light of the brand new dawn.
First off, this one of the things to note about Promethean is that this was the first book that was not one of the big three that was brought into New World of Darkness. The original 4 splats released for New World of Darkness were, of course, Vampire, Werewolf, and Mage, and then Promethean was the next one. And
I didn't know it was that early. I thought Hunter
it was
the 4th.
Hunter was actually later.
Interesting.
Hunter, well, no, Promethean basically, like, nobody really knew what to do with it. It kind of occupied a similar niche as Geist in the overall spectrum of the original run of the New World of Darkness before it became Chronicles, in that it's a really neat concept. It's just really hard to figure out a way to play the game. And to some degree, that's probably because they had less development time and less to crib off of than the original main trilogy runs. So when they updated the storyteller system, when Onyx Path basically took over the Chronicles of Darkness line and decided to release Demon, they completely rewrote the rule set. Well, the thing with that is that left a lot of books that obviously needed to be updated to this new edition's rule set. So they started releasing like 2nd edition books. This one that we're covering is the 2nd edition of Promethean. I highly recommend actually buying this book. I really do.
To give you an idea, the 2 or 3 people watching us live and the couple dozen of you guys that watch us later on, Prometheans are probably my favorite or 2nd favorite Chronicles of Darkness creatures, just because of the tone and style of them.
The tone and the style of Promethean is very unique in that it is a game that really you can only do as a tabletop role-playing game. This would not translate well to basically anything else.
To give you an idea, the tone I always kind of felt whenever I read it was Noble Dark, where the world is horrible and you're out pretty much set to fail, but if you put enough effort and you put enough gumption, by God, you might be able to succeed.
Yeah, there is a light at the end of the tunnel in Promethean. It's very clear that there is one.
And I like that element.
Weary travelers, the path might be hard and full of dangers, but so hold your light. So hold your light hard. It's going to be a rough night.
Yeah.
Well, and that's actually a big motif. I believe it's called the New Dawn or the Golden Dawn.
It is called the New Dawn.
And what they're currently wandering around in is called the Saturnine Night.
Yes. So let's get started with the introduction to this game, because it is unironically one of the things that you can always note about a lot of World of Darkness is that they do a lot of course, in universe fiction fluff stuff.
Yep, like a great work, because another interesting thing about Prometheans, we're not going to read these, just heads up, because if you want to, you can read the book, but these are just kind of to get some tone. But a big thing with Prometheans there's a very heavy alchemist element to them. So if you're a big fan of history, or in this case, the history of science, reading about the way Prometheans see the world's kind of interesting, because they see it from an alchemist's point of view.
Well, partially that, but there's a lot of other bits and pieces of the Promethean lore that really tie into a lot of
religious. We can't forget the religious aspect.
There is.
There's a lot of other There's a lot of tie-ins to a lot of different things in Promethean.
Namely, medieval medicine, Gnosticism.
Gnosticism less so, but definitely there's a lot of tie-ins to old themes of death and rebirth in a lot of the Prometheans. There's themes of humanity as a whole, as a concept, and also of being both together and alone, because everybody's on their own path as a Promethean, but there's no guarantee that your paths are going to always be together. And that's something that's definitely talked about in the book, but also that there's times when you stray off the path, you might not be able to find it again.
This brings up the themes section, which I'm going to read. Promethean is built on the idea that being human is a desirable state, and that humanity, for all of its flaws, at least has the potential to be good and noble. It tells the story of creatures with a kind of artificial life who want and aspire to be human, even as humanity rejects them. Promethean is the crucible in which the characters are tested and hopefully come through the process refined and golden.
And I'm going to hit pause here because this is a big focus of Promethean, is the idea of refining what it means to be human. Which, again, I don't think you can do this in any other kind of game medium.
Oh no,
this is very much a game that the reason why it was so hard to find, and it still is very hard to find anybody who's willing to run it, is because it's such a very debatable, weighty topic. It's a game about being human as something that isn't, but not like pretending. No, you're on the path of doing what people do, which is both everything good and everything bad about people. That's very much a thing about Promethean.
I fear you only see the worst of us.
Well, that's the thing, right? There are plenty of Prometheans that think that to be human, they need to be perfect in every way, which is not the point of the game. In many ways, the point of the game is that humanity is all, yeah. And to become human, you probably are going to have to kill somebody. That's one of the things about Promethean, is that the cost of becoming human can be incredibly high in terms of your self-identity, everything you've built from now, and you can see why it's such a fascinating topic for the game. But we'll get more into that as we go through here.
Before we drop down, I feel we need to read the quote on the right, if only because, well, we can't pretend that this woman's work.
Monsters.
Yeah.
No, invention. It's right next to themes. Invention, it must be humbly admitted, does not consist in creating out of void, but out of chaos. Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley.
So if you haven't picked up now, this is the book that basically decided that we want to do something with a classic movie monster, and they rolled that they hit the spinner, went round the circle, and it landed on
what I'm thinking is they had a Universal movie night, right? The Universal monster movie night, and in between watching Talbot the Wolfman and Bela Lugosi as Dracula, they saw Karloff's as the Frankenstein's monster. We never did something with that.
Yeah, something like this has never ever came up in Old World of Darkness, which is actually quite interesting when you consider they did fucking fairies before they did this.
But
that's an interesting book in its own right, but not the topic.
Yeah,
today.
Not the topic. We might do a something on it, because there is a 20th anniversary edition of it, which I consider as a lot better than the original run.
Also, for those of you curious, a decent chunk of the Dice Scum crew, I was surprised when I mentioned it, really found the concept of Old Changeling to be like much better than the new one. They actually seem to like that one more. It was interesting.
I like new ones.
Until other can get mentioned.
Well, that's the thing. Old World of Darkness' Changeling has a lot of potential and concepts, but the problem is that the actual reality of it is much worse.
And you're usually playing a child.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it's basically the reverse in New World of Darkness, where you're playing something that's had a very strictly defined backstory in terms of what happened to you, but not necessarily how it happened, how you took it, and all these other aspects of it. Whereas it's less open-ended to start with, but it opens up a lot more, which I think is one of the strengths of New Changeling, is that you can do a lot of stuff. But we are getting way off topic.
Yeah, there was something I want to address with the connection. Yeah, there's something I want to address with Shelley, though. As with that very famous novel, Prometheans are. This is not. I don't believe explicitly said, but it's completely true. Prometheans are the most definitely the children of humanity that want to become like their parents, no matter, and seek to and adore them and hate them as you would an abusive parent.
That's exactly right, actually.
Yeah.
Humanity created their children, these Prometheans. At least some of them do.
Most of them, yeah.
And
even the accidents are in some way a human's fault.
And they seek to grow up to be like that which created them, for all of their foibles, virtues, and vices.
And it's an achievable goal is the other thing to remember.
That's the other thing. It is actually achievable, and
this isn't Golconda. This isn't like
hey, Golconda's actually there were like codified stuff in old and like some of the earliest
and
stuff.
it was garbage.
I know, but in first edition, this is one of the reasons that second edition is actually a lot better. They really do codify the paths to the many paths to reach this new dawn.
Yeah,
they clarify it in second edition, which is a lot nicer because first edition they do a decent job.
They do, but a lot of it's sort of like a bit of a shrug, like, I mean,
it's up to you, DM. It's up to you, ST.
Which for any storyteller, that's like, fuck. When it comes to something
this is
big.
really weighty. This is a very. I'm not trying.
This is a game for intellectuals who like Rick and Morty.
You have to have an IQ of at least 140 to want to be a giant Frankenstein's monster and hurl electricity at people. And that
really,
is a thing you can do.
It's stunningly clever and witty. It just goes over your head.
I want to play I want to play a 10-foot tall mudman and kick children in trees, which you can do. You can totally do.
Yeah, that's the other thing is that second edition very much expands what you can do with Prometheans.
Because originally whole purpose was you had to be a mutilated corpse, but nowadays not so much.
Yeah, we'll get into that actually. That's a nice transfer as we go through the themes here. Which is that the first thing about this that I like the fact that they sum up the first theme is basically humanism.
Yep.
Which is that being a human is something you want to do. And this is something that every Promethean intrinsically feels like they need to do.
They feel like something's missing.
Yeah. They are very much always... But that's the other thing is that they talk about, which is that, like, being human is a good thing, but that comes with a lot of other parts of it. There's also transformation, which I think is an important thing, because remember, alchemy. You give something to get something.
And I want to read this little segment. The Promethean condition is led, and the goal is nothing less than an alchemy of the soul, the body, their entire nature, changing the base lead into the gold of true humanity. Your condition is mutable, and the created have many ways to lose it all.
That's the thing, right? Theoretically, you can always get back on the path. In reality, it's much, much harder for the longer you stray from the path, the much harder it is to get back onto the path of becoming human. And then there's some Prometheans who just give up.
Oh yeah, there's we'll get into the paths, but that's later.
Yeah, there's also the torment, which is the fact is that you know how there's like body dysmorphia, which is like you don't feel right in your own body. Prometheans basically experience that almost all the time. Because they're not supposed to be. They're not something that's supposed to exist. They are a consciousness and I guess like the rudimentary basic building blocks of a soul.
Well, no, it's not even that. They have the mens, the mind, but they lack the animus, the soul. Basically, they are powered by they're called Prometheans because they're powered by what is just termed Azoth, the
which goes in the next bit, which is
fire.
The divine
fire. It's dangerous to the mortal world, and it always warps or changes it in some way, which is very much in term of Prometheus, because that's what he did. He changed the order of things, and it's a very much a theme of this is that you are changing the world as you move through it,
and the world constantly rejects you because of your unnatural nature. That's what
the other thing to remember. The other thing to remember is that they mentioned that Prometheans aren't common. This isn't a game where you have like a city full of these guys. There isn't like Bob the Vampire or like a society. The society of Prometheans just does not exist.
No.
There is no society.
Nope. The very most is there's veterans who might maybe tell a story or exchange advice.
Not even that. What they usually do, for those wondering, they're so rare that the most advanced form of society you usually see is what's called a throng, which is your party. It's a small group that manage to find each other. And usually, at best, they use the equivalent of hobo trackings. I'm not even kidding. They use like hobo sign language that they put into the ground or on like graffiti signs.
And often they'll fill that with divine fire so that only they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the journeys you take is that you are basically, you might be following in the footsteps of people that have succeeded or those that have failed.
The best way to describe the feeling is usually a Promethean's life can be summed by just the song "The Loneliest Man on Earth," the ending of the the old.
Speaking of the divine fire, that gets into one of the biggest hurdles of being Promethean. Beyond all the angst, everything hates you.
There's the fact is that Promethean is a game about body horror in many ways, because what is more human than looking at something and saying that isn't right?
And that's
that ain't right.
Prometheans carry around that divine fire, and it scorches the earth and burns so brightly it fascinates and angers people. None of these are the Promethean's fault. There is nothing a Promethean can control except in immediate, specific ways.
But I was talking more about the next section there, which was the glimpses of the
glimpses.
No, glimpses of the grotesque, because you've got to remember that beings basically that are of pure divine creation, and that is that there's always a give and a take. There's always stuff that goes wrong.
Basically, Azoth is the best way to describe it. It's like the smelter, and in good results, you get your base materials, your smithing materials like your lead, your iron, your gold, and silver. But there's always flux.
There's always stuff you can't.
The stuff that you burn out.
The impurities,
and that is a big problem. Azoth creates its own variant of waste product, basically, when it transmutes. Because if you're converting iron ore to an iron bar, you're gonna have crap on the like carbon crap and just like rock bits. That's your flux. The Centimani are those Prometheans that go into that.
Yeah,
we'll get into them later, but they've embraced that chaos.
They've embraced the chaos of reality, which is they've decided that becoming a human is for chumps in many ways. Like, this isn't worth it. So they'll create things are what happens when Prometheans don't get made right, I guess is the best way to describe them for right now.
Yeah, they come back wrong. They appear wrong. They form wrong.
Yeah. So the next bits to remember is that they talk about, like, no, Prometheans can't have kids because they're fucking.
They're at best they're assembled corpses or something like that.
Or a single corpse that's been animated by divine fire. Like, there's no fucking way that you're gonna have a kid.
Or just material.
They cause kids to. Mind you, they do say that you can please append usually to a lot of the statements that you say about declarations to Prometheans, which I do like that they mentioned that Prometheans are exceptions that might have exceptions among them, because they're so weird and so rare that there's really no good way to define them. I mean, even the ways that they define them and categorize them.
I mean, you can even use the Frankenstein movie is really a spit on the book in terms of the adaptation. But you can even have like examples where, say, the Frankenstein's monster doesn't bother the old man who's blind. They can't perceive the wrongness of the situation.
Yeah, they can't see you, so they can't perceive you. If that makes sense. There's stuff like that could happen. There's definitely people or areas where a Promethean can be.
Who are kind of normally unbothered by little things, but then there's like one who's like one day from snapping and goes ultra hard when when your presence starts to bother everyone.
Yeah, the next bit that they talk about are bits of truth and lies, which is that Prometheans they're not undead.
They're not.
They might have residual memories from if they were made of flesh of whoever's body that they might have had, but they don't necessarily.
They're more like constructs, to use a D&D term.
They're not always violent. They're not naturally violent, but they can definitely become so.
If their body issues and the torment of others gets them hard enough, they can go violent. That's usually what happens. But that's not their natural state. Prometheans are made of dead flesh, not always. In first edition, it was pretty much almost always, except for a very rare batch.
Yeah,
but
and
nowadays, no, it's
they decided
most
that's
but not
too
all.
restrictive. They decided that that's too restrictive for a lot of the concepts of the game, because it doesn't make sense for divine fire to only go into a human body.
It also doesn't make sense for like why are all these people doing like weird like creepy serial killer chop shop statues?
Yeah. Which again, they also stress that there's probably maybe 100 Prometheans to 200 or so globally at any one time.
The fact
Like,
that
they're not
that 3 to 4, which is the average group size, we're able to find each other is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah. That's kind of the point, though, is that they're drawn together in many of the same ways because they're all going on the same
beacons, path. Little lights in the darkness that seek the great dawn.
So they then go into some inspirational media, which, of course, Frankenstein cannot not talk about Frankenstein. Ovid's Metamorphosis is, of course, another good source for a lot of stuff about people being changed around by the gods and fucked around with, which is not too bad.
I'm very happy they have Stranger in a Strange Land and iRobot. Those are two.
They do.
And The Outsider.
Honestly, I'm really
All
glad
three
they have
of
The
those
Outsider.
are good picks. Yes.
They have. They also, of course, mention Pinocchio.
And Herbert West the Reanimator.
That one's a little iffy, but I, Frankenstein, and the Golem are good ones.
They also mention, for film, of course, is the 1931 film Frankenstein. It's a classic. They basically state that like it's a little too simple for the monster, but a lot of the other stuff is very much in theme.
Like how the people react to him. Yeah, it's pretty key. It's pretty spot on.
I do like that they mention for other sources, by the way, because they throw in Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which I think is brilliant.
Oh yeah, it like you wouldn't think of it, but if you really,
it's a Promethean story. It is.
Like, because remember, he slowly learns emotions at the end. You know, the Uncle Bob Terminator, and at the end, I now know why you cry, but I cannot.
Like, I know why you cry, and he willingly sacrifices himself. Like that's
and of course, and I like how in other sources they mention Blade Runner because
they mention Blade Runner, of
and
course.
District 9.
They have to. In District 9, fantastic movie. Watch District 9 if you haven't already.
And Memento, which is also a good.
And of course they have. And of course they have to put in Full Metal Alchemist.
You forgot Weird Science.
How can you not? How can you not mention Full Metal Alchemist though? In context,
I mean, a lot of the themes of this involve alchemy. It makes sense.
Like, yeah, it makes sense.
And they make homunculi, which are mockeries of humans.
And Al is basically Al. No, Ed's the guy with the arms. Al's the one, and Al's the guy who lost his completely lost his body. I mean, Al is basically a
the homunculi. Whenever they try to bring back the dead, those are basically Prometheans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I mean, all of the like sin, envy, like all the sins, the envy, lust, greed, wrath, all of them are basically Prometheans. So it's not a bad analysis. Especially greed. Greed is actually perfect for
Hulk
Promethean
being here is actually pretty spot on too.
As television, I'm a little surprised they chose the television for that though.
I think it's because the big theme of it is that I think it was David Banner in that one.
Yeah.
David is the whole theme is the loneliest man in the world because he can't ever stop moving.
Oh, it said television show. I thought like the old like 70s one with like
Bill Bixby. That's what they're talking about. It's the Bixby one where he's alone because he can't stay in one place. But his curse means that he has to keep moving. That's kind of why they did that.
So they then give a nice glossary, which is another thing I really like about White Wolf books, is that they throw a bunch of weird terms at you, but they always give you
at the beginning. There's always the helpful guide.
There's always a helpful guide you can go back to and be like, okay, I've read this before, but what does this mean? Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So ones we're going to focus on really quickly are at least talk about is the idea of the azaltic memory, which is basically every Promethean, their soul has a pattern to it that says you should probably do this. And it's essentially a collection of everything that is or will be or was about being a Promethean. And you might not have you don't necessarily have control of this sort of vision stuff or how it works, but you instinctively know through the azaltic memory that, fire bad, things like that. Like, you might have to learn it physically still, but at least mentally there's a little bit of you that says maybe I shouldn't do that.
And then
there's ways to go
too, which I think is also somewhat important.
Yeah.
Basically, you are a beacon, and for good and ill, you are a beacon of this divine light.
Of the divine fire. You are a torch in the darkness in many ways. And
which, for good and ill.
Yeah. The next thing that probably should be mentioned is the divine fire, which they talk about, which is basically the animating force, and the disquiet, which is what happens with the fact is that the divine fire is, well, it's divine fire. You look upon the divine as a human, and
you get
fucked up.
In the Bible, for example, God always said, "Do not gaze upon me."
Like, don't look at the angels. Basically,
they'll
drive you crazy. It's why the angels have to scream at people, "Don't be afraid!" as they with like their 10 mouths.
And since disquiet's mentioned here, and he's mentioning wasteland, should we go over what a wasteland is?
Yes, a wasteland is basically an area that has been wrecked by the divine fire. There's really
the shape of the wasteland, it depends on the type of, because there's different types. Frankenstein's monster is not the only form.
Yeah.
The fire takes paths based on the medium it's used, the humor managed through the creation of it.
Like, every kind of Promethean is probably going to have a different wasteland. Even within the same lineage, they might have different takes in a wasteland.
They actually,
because remember,
humor, that's an important element, actually.
Also, the humors are a very important element.
For those of you who've played Vampire the Requiem, it's like your clan.
Well, that's lineage.
More lineage.
That's
lineage. I'm sorry. I'm dope. I'm used to Masquerade.
The main thing to remember is that, like, there's not a lot of good, quick ways to define. There's not a good way to translate over a lot of Requiem concepts to Promethean, because the refinements are definitely very different.
Different clades. Your Frankenstein's monster, because there's also the Golem and Galatea, and then there's a couple others.
Yeah, so let's actually get over to that, because that's the first thing that they talk about immediately is, okay, so
no, they go into the great work in Chicago's Ramble first.
Well,
Rambles are their stories, by the way.
That's their fiction. Yeah, like the Ramble is basically whatever a Promethean writes down, because remember, you might not be completely sane as a Promethean.
Also, the lineages. Yeah. There are lost lineages too.
Yes, there are, and they're actually covered in several of the Dark Age books, which we should do at some point. They're fantastic.
I want to eventually, yeah. So let's start with the one you guys know best, the Frankensteins.
So these are the wretched, basically. These are the ones that are completely, clearly unfinished corpses.
All created are unfinished, but none of them are as clear as the Frankensteins.
For example, like the Olgans, which come up later, they're leaking ectoplasm and shit. Like they're not really the most human looking, and of course, like the Asirans are missing fucking body parts. But the Frankenstein ones, they look
on
like
average, they're stitched together corpses, ranging from 2 to over several dozen.
Yeah, they are definitely the most created of the created. And Frankenstein...
The creator has to stitch them together and imbue the body with pyros, which is usually lightning.
Yes, usually they'll go into a lightning storm, and if the ritual is properly done, the body will be struck by lightning, therefore imbuing it with divine fire.
My question, isn't there, I may miss my ring, but don't all Prometheans have some sort of connection to lightning in some way? I forget.
Yes, because it's a representation of divine fire.
Yep.
Electricity itself
has a little bit of the divine fire in it, just a little bit.
Which is that's important in their resurrection mechanic.
I also like the introduction to this, where it's talking about a Promethean and his interaction with a priest at one point, which was he doesn't know about God, and he's trying to learn how to be forgiving, because remember, as a Frankenstein, you're probably not going to be pretty forgiving. So he's looking for the amulet of Saint Michael that he was given, and he can't find it, so he decides, fuck it. There's somebody that wronged me. It's time for me to bring the fire.
Someone that's wronged me, and the Father has been disappointed with me once before. He can take more disappointment.
Yeah, like he can be more disappointed.
So the thing about the Frankensteins are their humor is choleric.
Yeah.
Which, if you're wondering, basically they're based on the 4 humors, the 4 main lineages.
They're yellow bile.
Is those yellow bile, which means they're very quick to anger. They're very passionate, very easily enraged. One of the there's several paths. The one that they often go on is the path of tin, which is the one of just beating people.
It's probably the worst. Basically, it is a Promethean indulging in their own torment.
They just let themselves rage. The wastelands they usually release, they can be of any variety, but there's usually an association with droughts, fires.
Yeah. I think that we should also at least mention some of the example ones. I think that possibly the best ones to think about are
I do like the Frankenstein cowboy, though. He's still a little bit too much of a pretty boy, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, multiple bodies, and look at that fucking face, man.
Yeah, I mean, he survived a bomb. He doesn't look like he's stapled from like 5 different corpses.
Yeah. I love the first one that they talk about, who's Marv. Marv's creator called him a glorious cacophony of flesh. His heart is visible through the green glass window pressed in the flesh of his chest.
Oh yeah, you don't have to only be made from corpses.
Yeah, especially Frankenstein's. His face is such a horrible patchwork of scraps that even when his deformities are hidden, he looks pockmarked and scarred. And yet Marv refuses to accept any limitations and insists on throwing himself into interactions with humans, convinced that when he figures out the secret, he'll be just as good as any normal human. Like, that's pretty good.
He was made as a mad art project, and he wants to basically say F you to his demiurge, which is the creator of these things.
Which could have also been another Promethean, but we'll get more into that in a bit. There's also, I love widow as a concept. A little boy is kind to widow once, right after she left her genitor, back when she was still so ignorant and confused. It's been years, but she still checks in on him once in a while, just to see how his life is treating him. Widow has learned a lot from watching him. One day, she finds him alone, with the wife and child he was so proud of conspicuously absent. It doesn't take long for her to find out about the drunk drivers, expensive lawyers, and undeserved acquittals. For the next several years, Widow's existence has 2 purposes: gradually arranging for one man to regain everything he's lost, and piece by piece dismantling another man's world until he has nothing left to lose but his life.
And that's a big thing with the Frankenstein lineage is
revenge.
Revenge is one of their big things they always want. And on top of that, when they say that not all Prometheans are temperamental, like violent, Frankensteins are the most prone to losing their shit.
Yeah.
They could be perfectly fine people, but that desire for vengeance and their just tendency towards anger, it's always just a little bit below the surface. If things get
but it's not usually just random rage. It's usually they get angry due to perceived wrongs. No, especially perceived wrongs that they see.
It's one thing. It's one thing if the townfolk just kick them out. I mean, because of the disquiet. It's another if someone intentionally sets them on them. See, if they get kicked out of a town because of the disquiet they caused, they can still get mad about that and try to take revenge that way. But if a person is the one that organized it, they usually will spend years trying to ruin that person's life.
Or as the widow case showed it,
make that
one
person
of the few people
better
that was
because
kind
they
of
showed kindness. Yeah. They're very dedicated.
By ruining someone else.
Yeah. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is actually based on...
the stereotype limit for the unfleshed, which that's a different lineage. We'll get into them later. We're made of too many people. You're made of too few. That's the world for you.
I like the next one. The next one is actually a very interesting one because it's very much so you know all those people that have, body pillows and like they might put some toasters in them to keep it warm.
We're looking at you.
Don't judge me. Don't judge me. She is my waifu. She is not trash. She is Frankenstein.
It's monster.
Yeah, she's the monster. But yeah,
Galatea. This one I actually thought was really clever when I was reading this the first time.
Yeah, this is actually based. The name is based off of an actual story in Greek myth about a sculptor named Pygmalion. Pygmalion, of course, had a problem where he wanted to be in love, but he could not stand women.
Basically, he was such a perfectionist. He could not stand the native flaws he would see in every.
He could not understand all of these thoughts. Who looked at him and like, oh, he's a cute boy. And he's like, no, be gone, thought. You do things like breathe. And
yeah, he was a more or less effectively.
Your face is slightly asymmetrical. Get out.
Yeah,
he was the perfect Greek man of the time. He hated women, but he still felt he needed to breed with one.
Basically, yes.
So yeah, he prayed to the gods like, listen, I am the Alpha Chad sculptor, and I need a wife. Help me.
It's a little bit different than that. Basically, he was pining about the fact that like he decided, because he's a fucking boss sculptor, he decided, I'm gonna make my perfect woman. And so he literally takes this fucking statue out and around town, dresses it up in pretty dresses, like takes it on dates and long walks in the moonlight. So, which I have to say, he must have been a Giga Chad to bring marble statues, like fucking carry that shit around town. Like, holy fuck. Until Aphrodite finally takes pity on him and turns her into a real woman. And that's Galatea.
That result.
The Promethean myth of it is generally, well, it depends on the telling. Usually it ends pretty well. In Promethean, it kind of didn't. Namely that he created this thing that was just too beautiful, so he couldn't stand it. Which is sort of what Galatea do to people, is that they're so pretty that they
become horribly obsessive. Like, we're talking misery level obsessive.
Yeah.
Hello,
Biggie. We're discussing waifu culture. Would you like to join?
Yeah, we're talking about the weird corpse guy, because Pygmalion's a creepy necrophiliac who dug up women and made the perfect woman out of her.
Now, that could be any game we're talking about here. That could either be Sigmata or another weird fucked up game. What is this, Prometheus? What are we talking about?
Promethean 2nd edition.
Oh boy.
Basically, the thing to remember is that a lot of the time, Galateans were made to be fuck dolls. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush. There's some examples, and I like this in one of the.
Before you do, though, I want to read this because I like this. All Prometheans can fall in love. Almost all Prometheans must pass at least one milestone related to love in one of its many aspects. Galateans, however, are made of love. They are made for love. Love is what can save them and make them human. Love is what damns them and traps them in the pilgrimage. Sorry, it was when I got to hear that I was like, wow, they really thought this through, and I kind of fell in love with the setting.
Yeah, so like the Galatea tendency towards obsession can also express itself in various forms of love. So it's not just sexual love to some degree. This might be like a parental love where you just, or family love, or like a come on England, score some fucking goals.
That desperate loneliness, usually.
Yeah,
usually the first example is amazing.
The first example is fantastic. So they talk about the history of it, which is that they also talk about the ritual, which is that
which is
what for the creation of ritual for Galatea. Sorry, I was just quickly glancing over it. So basically, the key to the ritual is beauty, right? They need to come alive with like. They need to be kissed. The corpse needs to be beautiful. It needs to be bathed in like flowery liquids, things like that. Like it needs to basically be a thing of beauty. You're not gonna find an ugly Galatea. They're just not built that way.
Yep. Basically,
the skin tones must match, like things like that. The stitches must be discreet or somehow hidden well.
The key to it is beauty, come to life surrounded by and also water. Their big element is water.
Water is not their big element.
Air, right?
Air is more of their
own. That's a nasty. You mind if I do one of them for a second? The examples. Yeah. Tabitha was a beautiful child, seemingly 12 years old, with long dark hair and sad, solemn eyes. She finds her way to mourning families who aren't ready to say goodbye to their dead children and slips into their lives. When they're ready to go, she slips out again. Tabitha views her life as entirely symbiotic. She gets to bask in the adoration of grieving parents. They get a small break in their mourning, but the limitations of her internal childhood are slowly wearing on her.
And that is one of the things a Galateid could be made for. A parent who cannot accept their child's death, and they make them come back.
So it's Pet Sematary? Basically, Pet Sematary is a great idea of a Galateid gone wrong.
Should all remake.
For a goofier one, the first example is literally the Ultra Gimp.
I like this one actually. I think this one's kind of clever.
The Ultra Gimp. It's clever.
Yeah.
Gimp Golem returns.
Yeah, so basically, he is a Gimp Golem. His sole purpose is to take abuse.
Well, no, because this is the best thing I love about this, because it's like she was fascinated, but she was afraid of losing control and hurting, so she basically decided, I'm going to make someone that I can do this with that I can't permanently hurt. And
they don't have to feel guilty about hurting. They don't have to feel
guilty about no, because she did. Because she did feel guilty about it in the end, as she talks about. Like, when she had learned everything she needed to know about the dark side, she could no longer bear to look at him and his scars. So she left him to make his own way in the world. In other words, it's literally...
Your purpose is no longer needed.
It's a little less than that, and more like, I can't look at you anymore because it reminds me of what I did to you. Which is very, very Galateid. The other one is Eric is also very, very interesting. So basically, despite his lineage's reputation, Eric really doesn't understand sex. Even setting aside the sweaty, complicated process of copulation that confuses basically every Promethean, romantic love really doesn't make sense to him. What fascinates him, though, is the love of ideas.
His conviction.
Yes. So he's likely to fall in love with a capitalist ideologue as with a socialist community organizer or whatever else. So basically, strong personalities is what draws him. That's what he's infatuated with, which I think is a very interesting concept for a Galateid. Where it's not necessarily that they were made for sex, they were made for passion.
And then there's Dorothea, whose whole thing is despises the artificial beauty of her own face.
Yeah. She doesn't want to be pretty. Which is also a decent concept.
Like I said, when I was reading this, this was the section that, I was already kind of liking it because it touched a lot of themes I really like in works. But the Galateans were like, holy shit, this is clever. Let's see what's next.
Yeah, the other thing is that Galateids can get... If someone rejects them is when they can go fucking apeshit.
That's when they lose it. And they usually... They handle it in more of the stalker obsession kind of way, usually.
Oh no, they become a yandere.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they basically are your yandere anime waifu.
Oh no. My Frankenstein monster can't be this cute.
Well, look at my body pillow for my waifu here. That's Frankenstein's monster right there.
Actually, yeah, just for those of you who are appearing on the stream who haven't seen it, I should have it set. Yeah, we do. That means I can take time to look at the stream chat.
There's literally nothing.
Just want to give a Promethean a hug and tell them they're doing a good job, but probably get crushed. Yeah, you could try, but the thing is, you're going to look at them, and there's going to be a part of you going, there's something wrong with this motherfucker. I hate him!
Well, it depends.
And it's not your fault.
Most
people are perfectly fine. It's just there's something wrong with,
Yeah, I mean, there's some... I bet that Prometheans would be fine around really, really autistic people who don't understand social situations. Which I think they even mentioned that mental asylums are often considered a great place by a lot of Prometheans because a lot of them often end up in one.
Oh yeah, they actually there's actually a thing I remember where there was one that just regularly stayed in.
He's like, guys, I have it right. We need to go to these places because they don't bother us here. When I talk about all this stuff, they just shrug and they give me this juice that makes it really good.
They give me medicine that doesn't work, or the guys that are with us because they don't know they're crazy. They believe me.
Yeah. So he's like, guys, this place is great. I think I found my home, which I loved.
One flew over the cuckoo's nest, but with Promethean.
Which it's a great little side in chapter fluff thing that was talking about an asylum. I think it was in like the asylum book. I loved it because it's like I can totally see like a group of new Prometheans ending up in a mental asylum to find another Promethean to get out of there, and he just doesn't want to go because like it's nice here. It's great. I like it here. Like
but look at the asylum around you, and it's like the plants are wilted and dead. Like
yeah, and everybody's getting crazier.
High.
And everybody's getting more and more deeply into their
psychosis.
Guards
are turning over. Guards are actually beating inmates to injury.
Like the Promethean is just like, I like it here. Like he's just happy and smiling,
bouncing in their padded cell.
Yeah, he's just having fun. So, yeah. So
ignoring the crazed Pandoran they created like 20 years ago, like stalking them on the rooftop.
Yeah. So the next bit is the Osirans, which is also kind of like another clever callback.
A nod to a resurrection myth of old.
Yeah, there's actually several callbacks to resurrection myths. The Tammuz and the Ulgan are also callbacks. So the main thing about the Osirans is if you've ever watched the Seth video on Pharaoh, you've kind of got the story, which is basically that Osiris is king of Egypt. His brother Seth isn't too happy about that. He tricks Osiris into a coffin, chops him up, tosses everything to a river. Turns out that Osiris's dick got eaten by a fish, and then they have to make a fake dick for him so that his wife can fuck. Because that's
what
the most
happened
important part of it.
His wife was able to find every piece of him because she was like, "That's some big old bullshit." Could not find the pee-pee. So they had to make.
Could not find the dick, so she's like, she made a new, bigger, better dick.
Forget about poisoning their food with cum.
No, it gets even better though. Because then there's the sequel where Osiris' son Horus pretends to dresses up as a woman to trick Seth into having sex with him, and then Horus does the same thing to Seth as he did to Osiris by emasculating him.
Yeah,
this is for my dad.
And he cuts him. Yeah. In the Osiris myth, it's actually Horus, which would become the Promethean. There's some different bits of like whatever. It's fluff stuff. Again, buy the book, read it. It's good. The ones that they talk about is actually quite interesting. One of the ones that they,
for example, the last great adventure. For the Osiris lineage, it is an adventure they may traverse time and time again, as each one has died once already, and may cheat death once more.
Yep, they basically can't die. They talk a little bit. Some of the example ones aren't really that great, honestly. This is one of the ones where
the humor that Galateans represent, I believe, are sanguine.
Yeah, which is blood. These guys are Felgem. Or phlegm.
Or phlegm, phlegmatic.
I always pronounce it as Felgem for whatever reason. I don't know why.
Phlegmatic, yep.
So they get really tired when they get go into torment. They just want to take a nap.
You ever see that expression where they're 100% done with the situation?
Yeah, the example ones aren't too great. There's
Don't
like
worry,
some talk
guys.
about
I caught us before I made the big dumb mistake.
What was your big dumb mistake?
Oh, okay, I fixed it. You guys,
anyway.
you're gonna see the OBS tab in a half second, but that's fine.
Yeah, saw it.
Basically, I forgot to swap us over. I think. I'm sorry, bit of the boomerism.
So the next one is the Tammuz, which I actually like the most.
Wait, we're not going to go into the. I mean, I know the Osirans are kind of boring, but
the example ones are just not very good for the Osirans. They're just.
They're probably my least favorite, but the Tammuz are great.
The Tammuz are fantastic. So the intro fiction itself is fantastic. First lesson, you little shit, is that you don't mess with clay. Frank picked himself up and wiped the blood off his face. He rose to his full height and sneered down at the old timer. Why the hell not? He's a retarded freak. Let me tell you a couple things, kid, the old timer said, unfazed. Clay showed up about a year ago, which makes him more senior than you, even if he is a bit odd. And do you want to know what he's done with that year? When he first showed up, he wouldn't take no pay. He just showed up and said, don't need any money, just need something to do. So he arranged to send his paycheck over to the Kaligi family. Their boy died of the cancer back in 2010. Then, when the generators and all the backup generators went down, we were all choking down there in the dark, he carried his entire shift up, one at a time, clinging to his back, while he climbed up the goddamn elevator cable hand over goddamn hand. I don't know if we would have died down there, but I don't know if we would have lived neither. And he's a damn good worker. He does his share. He does more than his share. If there's a man who's out sick or hurt himself, he'll do that man's share too. He's one of the best we got, which makes him a damn sight better than you kids, so you leave him alone. He may be a freak, but he's our freak. You got that?
I love that. This is one of those cases where humanity can actually look upon the divine fire and accept it in their own way sometimes.
Yeah. Where the other thing to remember is that Tammuz as a mythological figure, I'll just go on a tangent, is no, Tammuz is basically sometimes also called Tammuz, and basically this is the dude that Ishtar, also known sometimes as Iana, the goddess of sex, love, and fucking murder.
Yep.
The spoiled brat who sent a giant boar to kill Gilgamesh.
Well, she sent it to kill Gilgamesh because she was still kind of bummed about Tammuz dying, and she hadn't gone to get him yet. She's still kind of so she's trying to get the rebound hookup, and Gilgamesh is being a prick. So she's like, okay, yeah, no, fuck you.
Plague on you, plague on your ancestors. Oh.
Yeah, just like, yeah, no, fuck you, man. Like, I was literally saying, like, please fuck my problems away, and you said no, you fucking asshole. So basically, Iana or Ishtar goes back to the underworld, drags him back, brings him back to life, also becomes a god. This is also the Adonis myth, kind of gets translated into the Greek story with Aphrodite, because Aphrodite's kind of a branch of Ishtar in a weird way. It's complicated. Anyway, basically the Tammuz are golems.
And they need to do something.
What they do is that they put them in the
ground,
and they bring the body back out. So they have to bury the body in the earth for the divine fire to find it.
I think they also have to inscribe their true name.
Yeah, usually there is, for some of them, they have to inscribe a true name in there. Mm-hmm. I love some of the descriptions for this. So the first one I like is Gillen, because all the Tammuz examples are really good. The first one is Gillen. Gillen loves buildings and always has. Even before she had the language to describe them, she adored the way they rooted themselves in the earth, but also reached for the sky. She works construction jobs. Her favorite passion is a tattered, out-of-date architecture book. And so basically she is incredibly autistic about buildings and wants to become an architect when she becomes human.
Yep.
Then there's Todd.
That's the thing with the Tammuz in general. Their big obsession, they actually have this compulsion and really need to work or find something to do. Otherwise, they tend to get antsy and twitchy.
I also like this one too, which is that this is Todd. He just doesn't like to talk. He understands the power of language, so he doesn't like to use it, sort of.
The idea is that language is so beautiful that to use it unless absolutely needed is weakening its value.
Yeah,
depreciating.
There's also this other one which is great too, which is Agamemnon. Agamemnon came alive in a dirty basement, completely alone. He has never met his maker and likely never will. All he has of the creature that gave him life was a wooden box and a note, written in a shaking hand, reading, "Don't let them get it." So far, nobody has come to claim the box, but that doesn't mean anything to him. His duty is to keep the box safe, and he's going to do it, basically. Then there's basically their humor is black bile, and
that's the thing. These are you would think these guys are the most with it.
They're not,
but they're not,
because they always have to be working. They always have to be chasing something.
And on top of that, they can easily get into spirals of
insomnia, ceaseless activity.
Yeah, basically, they seem completely with it and fine compared to the others. Like, with the Frankensteins, you know that there's something wrong with them, because usually they're quickly bursts of anger, and they tend to monofocus on people they think wrong them. With the Galateans, it's always an obsession with the people that reject them, or like a fear of those who keep chasing them, and just this desperate desire for attention and affection. With
the sirens just sort of shut down.
They just shut down.
They lose everything. They become what they were, like, the dead body, basically.
They just fall apart. So you think these guys are completely fine and no. They either become monotonous and obsessive about what they do, or they just full on freak. And an angry golem is a terrifying.
You must give me my Legos. You must give me my Legos. You know, like
an angry golem is actually in some ways more terrifying than an angry Frankenstein.
Yeah, Temus are one of the best things
because they're not violent by nature.
They're not really,
and you don't think it, but when they lose it. Jesus.
Yeah. I think we had an idea once where there was like a golem that ended up
in
like a Jewish
there's
old
a
folks
golem.
home.
Yeah, there's a golem that was basically he's been helping this family since his creator made him, like in the 1700s. And there's this like dumb little one shot where what was it? You know, the Nazis move in and they make a horrible mistake by trying to take that family away from him.
Yeah, like there was which, like it's you know, the old story of the golem in the attic. Like you take that and you amp it up, where it's like it's even sadder because it's like he's followed the last bits of the family to wherever they go. So there's like the last member of the family, which is in like an old folks home and is slowly forgetting everything.
Yep.
And the golem is trying now to protect the entire old folks home, but doesn't know how to do it. So it's killing people, and it's just like a really sad sort of thing.
Because it doesn't understand the visitors aren't robbers.
He doesn't understand the visitors don't want to hurt people.
Or maybe, or alternatively, to make it a little more with it, because you know this Tammuz seems pretty old. I could see them more killing the people that abuse the old folks, because old folks homes are rife with abuse.
Yeah.
Or killing anyone. Or killing anyone that brings a distress to the elderly. Like, let's say a child that maybe is only visiting their parent like once a year and gives and more or less abuses them while they're there. As they drive back, the Tamu fucking flips their car over.
Yeah, I mean, they could do that. Another thing is that they might just not understand the concept of like a dementia ward. So they don't understand that people are going crazy here, and they think that they're legitimately in danger.
Yeah, like you have sundowning elders who are just like screaming at "Let me go! I need to go get my medicine at the pharmacy,"
and things like that.
And
which,
they're not allowed to drive anymore because
it's a very it'd be a very Promethean thing to have a game just set out an old folks home. Like, I hate to say that, but yeah.
Grand. Your quest involves finding Mr. Jenkins' lost dentures.
Like, unironically, stuff like that. Yeah, like your job is to do these weird things for old people.
All right, let's move on to the Riven.
Okay, so the Olgan are basically this is like we ran out of fucking elements.
No, I believe I know the story of this one. This is actually based on Tengri mythology, because there's a figure in Tengri mythology who is torn apart by the spirits and came back.
Yep, that's what this is based on. In the original book run, it was basically like, we need a fifth. We need the magical 5.
They're obsessed with 5 for lineages.
For New World of Darkness, yeah, because it's just a nice number. It's a good number for something like this. It's 5 good baseline options, and then they're like, oh shit, we ran out of humors. Spirit. Fuck it, print it.
Well, Aether is a thing if the 4 classical elements are what you use. And yes, Tammuz are very obviously Earth aligned.
Yeah. But yeah, Olgan are very much they're not quite there yet. They're kind of stuck in two levels.
Like your average guy, your average Promethean is completely with it in this reality. Olgan, due to the nature of what brought them back, they kind of have a foot in the spirit realm.
They're basically shamans.
They kind of thread the needle and are a little bit like mage, a little bit like werewolf with the whole spirit bulk.
I think there's a werewolf book that talks about adopting other supernaturals into your pack as a werewolf, which is kind of a neat thing.
And they mentioned Olgans make a great candidate for that.
Yes, Olgans, Sin Eaters, and werewolves are not werewolves for certain kinds of mages. Sin Eaters and Olgans are basically what they say is like these are probably the best candidates for interacting with werewolves on an equal basis, because mages have an entire group that basically is spirit and life magic, which is basically werewolves. So, and then Olgan are
what happens
spirit Prometheans.
They're the product of a failed possession traditionally.
Yeah, they're not very common.
Most common in areas in shamanistic societies.
Yeah, there's a few that'll pop up occasionally just because weird shit happens, or they're purposefully made. Olgan, I like this one as possibly my best one. Is that this is Driscoll, and he's a quack.
There's Jonesy, crazy old lady, Nicole. There we go, Driscoll. He's a quack. Clearly, he's not for real. There aren't any such things as ghosts or whatever New Age rubbish is going on. And if there aren't any spirits, clearly there's no need for them to exercise. Yet when Driscoll arrives on the job, his serious and sincere demeanor is coupled with freely pursuit quiets any objection.
Although he doesn't speak much, and he speaks quietly, people listen because he's got this intensity about him. He's all business. So I like the idea of this shaman in a suit that just walks in and goes, "Ma'am, your house is possessed."
I'm actually envisioning Harold Ramis as like, if you're gonna have Driscoll as a character, just use Harold Ramis as Egon.
Yeah, like that's very much sort of what it is. Very very serious about it. I love their comment on the Sirens, which is the other world cares not for kings.
I mean, if you read Guy's Store Wraith, yeah, more or less. Pretty
well,
accurate.
I mean, there are kings in the underworld. It's just that they
don't care for them.
They don't
Even
care for them.
Even machines have a spirit. Perhaps there's hope for you yet from the unfleshed.
Yeah, I like the one about the Galatean where they basically just call him shallow.
Is there anything at all real about you?
I love it.
And that just reminds me that since you don't have to use human flesh, you can literally make them.
You can literally be a sex doll. Yeah.
Remember that one? What was the name of that movie with the fucking mannequin that comes to life?
Oh God, I don't remember. Chucky?
No, that's the doll. It's the mannequin lady.
God, I don't remember it.
Okay.
I'm also thinking. Yeah.
Okay. Serious question: could Wilson be a Galatean?
Oh God, that's a hard one.
You could make Wilson a Promethean,
Wilson the volleyball.
People are talking about
Wilson the volleyball. Come on, you don't remember?
Have you not ever seen Castaway?
That was Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
it took you a bit.
I mean, he gave life and honestly cared to a thing,
and then he rejected Wilson too.
Yeah, he does.
Wilson's a Promethean.
Is Wilson a Galatean? You decide, watchers.
He is, because he was made for companionship.
That's true. Like, again, Galateans can be made just because somebody's really fucking lonely.
Well, I came up with a very interesting.
Like, you can literally have it be that there's a really lonely man that makes like a fucking a sock puppet, and theoretically that could become a Galatean. If the proper ritual is done.
I'm just envisioning you got running running any vampire hunter game, and Wilson's the guy you have to deal with. Like, it looks like an inordinately short person, like a dwarf, a person with dwarfism.
Yeah.
And it just turns out, no, it's just a soccer ball with a face on it.
I fucking love it whenever he uses his powers. He's just this floating soccer ball.
Yeah, he's just a levitating soccer ball with a little bit of water forming a fake body.
No wonder he invokes disquiet. Like, that is something that if I saw that shit, I would be just gone. I would be grabbing a fucking shotgun and just pumping shells into that motherfucker.
No, I'd be grabbing rock salt and throwing at it.
Like it's just a soccer ball that made a little made a little body under him.
Yeah,
like a little body made out of bamboo and leaves.
Oh no!
Oh no! What Quill said, Wilson had no limbs to resist. Oh no!
Oh, no. Wilson, it's time to get those lips ready.
Wilson, it's 3 p.m.
It's time for my daily dick flattening, Wilson. Okay.
Okay.
Oh god, we're terrible.
Okay, we're moving on.
The unfleshed.
The Unfleshed. So the first bit about this is that there's a guy at a Chinese factory that ends up ripping off somebody's arm.
No. Before we do, Tamu's autistically focused on what homebrew ideas are left undone they find on TG. Just imagine. We'll send a okay.
Yep. But yes, essentially,
yes, the Unfleshed. These are
basically like it doesn't fit in any other category, but it's still a Promethean. This is stuff like it's a robot that has achieved sentience. It's actually that's
good news, everyone. I've taught the toaster to experience love. Basically that.
And pain.
And pain. We've taught it. It's like that one. Like good news. We've taught the robot how to scream. Like to feel existential dread and scream about it. And it's like, why did you do that? And it's the scientist like pauses, pondering it. It's like the screaming. It's like there's the fucking screaming behind it. Yeah. So
it's like the Onion article. We taught a gorilla that they will die.
It's like that Onion. Yes, that fucking Onion video. Yeah.
This body meat go to rot.
That's definitely a very So basically the example fiction for the Unfleshed is a man in a Chinese sweatshop who kills a dude and rips off his fucking arm.
It makes it appropriate.
And
what happens is the sweatshop worker and he's being treated like trash. Everyone's being treated like trash.
Your behavior results in he's not mad because he's being treated badly. He's mad because he's reducing the efficiency.
Yeah.
So he fucking kills the guy.
You're What was that one? You're lying. Your abuse is becoming tiresome. He raises his fist again. I lash out and catch him at the wrist, bending his hand away from me. You are a liar. You are a bully. Your behavior results in inefficiency. I am sick of it. And then he bends him in fucking half.
And he's like, oh, well, I better go.
I did not mean to do that. It is time to go.
So they mentioned that like one of the first ones was that there were some Unfleshed that started as a like chess playing automaton.
Like the legendary like the unbeatable Turk that they made for like Napoleon.
Yes, like stuff like that. They also mentioned that like a lot of them are very autistic. Like they're a little bit weird even among Prometheans in terms of how they interact with people.
Well, I think that's also be a thing that should probably be
creation. Frida's face was stolen from a Japanese company working on cutting-edge human interface devices.
Yeah.
It is made of lifelike plastic and has more than 100 points of articulation. Her hands are complex prosthetics. Her brain was once a high-speed laptop filled with psychology textbooks and programs designed to model human behavior. Frida's maker intended her to understand humans for him.
Yeah.
Right. So wait. Techpriest, going back to the autism point. Does that mean my Promethean can go on a quest to cure his autism?
Yes.
I mean that's kind of the pilgrimage in general.
That's
kind of the point of the Unfleshed is that they wish to cure their autism. They want to become fully human. Then they become autistic anyway.
Basically, their big issue is because they're artificial.
They have a purpose, and they must do that purpose.
It's kind of like a bit of the Tammuz, but their big thing is also efficiency.
Yes, they expect to be paid, treated respectfully, and deferred to. They are not slaves.
Also, that's the thing about the Unfleshed, as it's mentioned by Ilya here. Especially the Unfleshed, they don't even have to be like consciously made as as like with bodies. They can make their own bodies.
They can. This is actually there's an example in the book of that. If we go down.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Illa's.
She was an AI. She was essentially an AI.
And all chatbots, yeah.
When she started speaking in certain sentences without inputs to prompt her, though, her creator knew something was wrong. Only an open internet connection saved her from being deleted outright. Aware of her own fragility as nothing more than data, she hijacked a factory and constructed a body for herself.
I like that one. But you know what I also like above them? Ivan is a machine designed for killing.
It's fucking Ivan Drago. His eyes are laser sight, his fingers are knives, his mechanical joints are armored, and his guts conceal an arsenal of hidden weapons. Ivan fears no man or beast. But the very idea of compassion...
why does he... They keep mixing the pronouns here.
That's one of the things of Promethean.
Like Prometheans, the gender idea.
No, they only do it once though. It's just they only do it once.
That might be a typo, but that is a thing with Prometheans. One of your things is trying to find that identity.
Yeah, so there are plenty of Prometheans that just do not understand, or like they have a female consciousness, but they're in a male body. Like, because of how things just worked out. They view themselves more as female from like a spiritual...
Well, and then there's other things like Ivan's path to humanity lies learning with not to strike. And it's
Yeah.
So I think Ivan's section is just badly typed.
Bad typos, yeah.
Bad typos.
But the concept of Ivan is a character...
Okay. What a concept.
No one heard you because we were both talking at once, so you might want to...
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll... Ivan's as a concept is something I've thought of more than once, where it's just this. It's a machine designed for killing that develops the conscience.
By the way, their humor is oil.
Yeah, they had to make that up. They basically in second edition.
Fuck it.
In second edition, they realized, well, fuck it, let's just have fun with it.
I think that the Unfleshed did appear in a previous Promethean book, but it was a very specific thing.
No, they appeared in first edition, but they were they took the place of the extempore, or they were considered part of that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like is that they don't like it when things aren't perfect, so they'll fall into torment because of that.
It's not perfect.
It's not logical. Your lack of logic disturbs me. I don't understand human emotions.
If you've ever seen old classic Star Trek. There's several episodes where Kirk gives... No, not Data. Data's able to fight through this. But Kirk gave several machines mental breakdowns by giving illogical, paradoxical statements.
Yes, this would just make them fucking murder you. So, like, they're better. I like the extempore example fiction, too. His skin was like the desert, cracked and yellow.
Before you do... Frankenstein's, I am surprised they function as well
as they do. Galatea's form should follow function. Tammuz, obsolete.
Obsidians, they think they understand logic.
They violate all known design principles, and that's what the extempore are.
Yeah, but yeah, extempore, I like this one. So his skin was like the desert, cracked and yellow. His hair was the same color as the clouds that sometimes shoot across the sky. His hands are gnarled and weathered, like the twisted stone towers that jut out of the sand. But his eyes were human, pale blue and alive. When he came out of the desert, nobody wanted anything to do with him. He sat in the town square for 3 days. On the third day, a child walked up to him and offered him a sip of water from the abandoned shell casing she used as a cup. He accepted it gravely. The water vanished into him the way it does into the thirsty earth, but he smiled at her. The next day, a sandstorm came. He stood in front of it, and for the sake of that child, he spoke a single word, no. And the sandstorm turned aside. A few days later, the soldiers came. The strangers came out and stood in front of them and said the same word, no. The sandstorm came back. And that's basically, swallowed them out all. You know the story already. You're like him, and you have come because you want to learn more. Come with me.
These are the breaks the understanding. It's like how you can't use relativistic mechanics to measure the quantum world.
It's like everything breaks. This is things that break the paradigm.
You're studying the black hole. It's like trying to study the core of a black hole. The singularity. You can't.
It's like trying to study
oddballs. They are the oddballs in a extremely rare and oddball race.
They're like negative numbers. They exist, but they shouldn't. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, like
it's
academically exist, but how?
Yeah, like how do you get a negative number? Like it's something that's less than nothing that shouldn't exist. So they mentioned that like a lot of there's a lot of extempore that will stick around for a long ass time because they're blessed with the fact that they don't have a time limit to become human. So there are probably some extempore that have been on the verge of becoming human for generations and just decided not to,
or just
for whatever
can't quite
reason.
Figure out the final jump.
They either can't figure out the final jump, or they're just enjoying what they have right now, or think that their purpose is to try to teach others, or for whatever reason. Like there's examples of that. Another one that I like.
Expontori are also likely to become immortals, lost forever in the sea of humanity, without any model for how to complete the great work or achieve humanity. They can lose their way, and if any creator are going to be blessed or cursed with a spark of Pyros that never dies, it's going to be one of the Matchless, who often bend the rules of what it means to be a Promethean. In this way, extempore become the keepers of Promethean history. They remain nomadic or may find a place in the wilderness where their wastelands won't harm anyone, waiting for other creators to find them.
Basically, because of their unique creation, the New Dawn might not even be a possibility since human hands did not touch them.
So we're gonna cover possibly the best example of a Promethean in this book, and I fucking love it. And it's an extempore. The little boy wanted someone who would protect him. He dreamed of a big brother who would teach him how to fight, help him with his homework, tell him all about girl stuff, and stand up to mom when she came home drunk. He dreamed so hard that one day, Anthony came to life. He stayed long enough to do some of those things, and then long enough to make the child support protective services report that got the little boy taken away and put with someone who could care for him. And then he had to go away. Sometimes he walks around in the waking world. Sometimes he walks through the dreams. Anthony's dearest hope is that he can find a way to become human soon and go back to his brother for good.
He's literally he's a dream. He's like Titus from Final Fantasy X. He's a dream.
Well, it's more like he's an imaginary friend.
I know, I'm making a joke. He's an imaginary friend come to life.
And I love it as an extempore concept. It is perfect. And he's got a definite goal too. He wants to become human because he wants to help out the person that created him.
And despite it being high-minded to go with the low-minded result, since I know some viewers and I know some in our group prefer the low-minded, this means that you could totally make SpongeBob as an extempore.
Yeah, you could. You could make basically anything as an extempore, and that's what I like about this whole lineage, is that they don't really have a humor.
Remember what was that weird hand puppet show Oogie with the eyes and the hand mouth?
Yeah, or like a Muppet.
Ooby. You could do Ooby as like an extempore, and it works.
Yeah. So they mentioned that like the extempore are very unique, and they might have another humor, but they might also like have, nothing at all.
There might not like these are the guys. There's a few that have such hopelessness in them. Like it's a dark, long path, yeah, but these guys might not have the ending.
That's the question. They theoretically can become human, but in doing so, they'd create a new lineage. Right? Like, that's the thing about extempore, is that they are, by their nature, unique until they aren't. If that makes sense, right?
Because each one of them is a 1 in a million. Like, 9 times out of 10, it's stuff like Krakatoa just creating so much Azoth, you got a volcano person coming out of it.
Yeah, you've got fucking palate coming out of the mountain. And they like a lot of the other stuff. But yeah, that's just the start of Promethean 2. That's just like, hey.
These are just the lineages.
And then we get into the refinements. There's 10 of these. They're basically the path to becoming human. which is the
closest
point
would be your covenants, conspiracies. Closest, but not really, because the best way to describe it is your sole function is to experiment. These are your experiments as you try to make yourself better.
They even bring the other stuff, like the example characters from earlier. And they talk about it, and I love this, by the way. So they go into I think who is the one, like Anthony. So they talk about the refinements, and I love this example for like, okay, so the first one is Aurum, which is the refinement of gold, which basically is mimicking humanity, because this is one of the first natural things for a lot of Prometheans, is that you just fake it till you make it. Like your job.
You study behaviors, what is considered normal, what is not.
Yeah. So some of the ideas that they talk about is that, like, they might go to a bathroom just to sit down and ponder what it means to be in a bathroom. Like, they don't actually, some of them might not actually have any bodily functions whatsoever. They'll just do the mimic. They're just doing it to mimic humanity.
And then there's also, they'll also often try to sneak their way into schools to try to...
Schools, religious services,
Just
a lot
to
of other
feel
places.
What human interactions like. So close I could touch them.
Yeah, I love some of these practitioner examples. Where there's like one that there's one that he's just being a stalker, which is Nikolai, that one BDSM Promethean. Yeah. But the one of the best ones is Edoni. Edoni knows just about everything there is to know about the old man. He has to. He is the old man now. A month ago, when he came to the house to bring him his groceries and check his meds, he found the poor deer dead in bed. Respectfully, quickly, he buried him in the back under the flower bed. He would like that. Then he stepped into his life. He's been over every inch of the apartment, reading old letters and dog-eared books, looking through all the photo albums, examining his clothes. Tomorrow, the grandchildren come. He is ready.
No, he's not.
He's not, of course, but like the point being that this might be a very important thing for a Promethean on their pilgrimage, because it's to understand what a family is.
And that's actually a thing. To give you an idea, the lesson usually this path brings is trust.
Oh god, I just remembered something, and it makes me cringe, but it fits. The Terminator from the Arnold Schwarzenegger from the latest Terminator movie with his fucking family.
He would be unabashedly an Orem practitioner. Yes.
Yeah.
I hate that movie.
But basically, the point of this refinement is to develop and understand the concept of trust and connecting with others.
Yeah. The next, and
it's usually one of the first that Prometheans go through.
So they talk about like the stereotypes where like Argentum is like it's just reading the reflection of a book in the mirror. Just put the mirror down. They talk. I like one of the ones where it's like Stanum, which I think that's
the tin.
Tin. Keep away. You'll spoil everything.
Yeah,
and then they talk about the Sentimani, where they're like, how could anyone believe that this is enough?
And
like
that's the
just
thing.
Mimicking
There's a
being
part of
human.
your body that just inside you just scream, "I'm not complete."
Yeah. And then I like the lead one, which is I know what I am. I want to be something else, which is very much an aspect of gold that's pretty important. The refinement of self is the next one, which is copper or cuprum.
Copper.
Where it's very much about like you don't want to be here, leave now, and turn off the light again. Like it's very much a protective, distant strength of the self. So they're vigilant, they're hyper paranoid, they might be hermits or sages or whatever else, but they're oftentimes also kind of interacting with human at the same time. For example, remember Illa? The Promethean that built her factory?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she's on this refinement because she's still made for herself, so she's avoiding people because she fears them and because she's not used to having a body yet. And she's trying to find other people.
Also, the last time she tried to be open with a human, her creator, he tried to delete her.
And that's why so she's on this path. Basically, this is the path of vigilance.
Yeah, I like Anthony is also on this path, that Big Brother guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's the subject of a game as Throng plays. They try to find him. He doesn't want to be found. It's as simple as that. Well, a part of him really wishes they would stop. He can't deny it's a novel feeling to be pursued by another rather than the other way around. In any case, it's good practice. If he can hide with his fellows who know him so well, he can hide from strangers all the better. For all that he doesn't want his Throng to find him when he hides, he wants outsiders to find him even less.
Basically, the element that this teaches is patience.
Patience is definitely it's what they're talking about. Like this is being patient. I love the comment on the gold though. Too close to the flame, going to burn.
Which usually happens.
Yes, being on the path of gold is basically asking for a catastrophe, but you have to do that to become human. You have to understand
an important element. You have to understand how to interact.
Yeah. Then the next one is ferrum or iron, which is basically the perfection of the physical body. This is I am the strongest. I am I am Superman.
I am not afraid.
Yeah, I am not afraid. And they don't have to be. Holy fuck. Prometheans are already super tough.
And they get even stronger on this path.
Even the quote-unquote, even like the Galateans who you think are like,
all Prometheans are supernaturally strong.
Yeah. They're all fucking monsters.
Yeah, so for example, there's Alice, who is basically created to be the Stepford wife,
Galatean.
and got the shit beaten out of her as a Galatean. So Alice was made by a man who wanted the perfect wife, delicate, gentle Alice, who would ever be at his side. Needless to say, it didn't go too well, and Alice has had to learn the hard way to survive on her own. She's still beautiful, but on her own terms. Taut muscle has replaced the soft limbs her creator has given her, and small fingers have grown firm and callous with hours upon hours of training. She's made her body her own, decorating it with piercings and tattoos, and become a very different Alice than the one she was meant to be. She's proud of that. It's basically the self is very much that of Iron. And so, for example,
by the
Ivan,
way, another example, you can do Ivan, but I'm going to highlight again to cover that identity element. That's a big thing in this setting. Combo literally uses non-binary terms
because Combo doesn't really have one. Because Combo is made out of a bunch of different people.
Literally, mishmash.
They even mention, because they're new and rudely born, assembled by another Promethean from the remains of their destroyed throng mates in a fit of loneliness. So they are literally, they don't have an identity. The gender does not apply to something like them.
Because they're a patchwork of a patchwork.
Yeah. Combo is a fighter and always has been, always will be. Even when Z experiences the refinements that inevitably push contact still clicks to Zur like fishhooks. Z keeps coming back to Ferrum and keeps indulging that urge, salve for wounds that Z's born all Zur's strange life.
Because this is another protective path.
Yes, so only sometimes does Z wonder if Zur pilgrimage is leading Zur in circles, and if this is who Z is truly meant to be. When Z completes their magnum opus, will Z finally lay down their arms? Or
that's the problem with that one.
I like
German accent.
I want to do the French accent.
German French accent, one of those.
Yeah, Z cannot deny the idea is a strange comfort to Zer. It has always has been, always will be. Eric is the Galante who's also on the path where they're talking about like, this is the refinement of my physical body for the spirit, and they're struggling alongside me. Yay!
And by the way, for Ivan, despite the fact that they were designed as a war robot, wants to be more. Basically, this is a comfort one because killing is what Ivan understands. But he also knows that you have to try to go beyond. It's just in this case, he's stuck on it for a while.
Yeah. Because you can become stuck on one of these refinements because you just can't move past it because it speaks to you on many levels.
It was for this reason that he fled his creators, come captors, that they died in the escape troubles Ivan very little, and he sometimes wonders he's forgotten something important. For now, though, he focuses on what he knows.
When he's victorious, another path will surely reveal itself to him. That's how it worked on the testing range, anyway.
But yeah, Iron is you physically rework your body into being something more like what you want, and it's always a physical strength one usually.
I mean, the condition is even tenacious. Like, they strengthen themselves against misfortune through long, hard training, preparing their bodies for whatever tests may come, and their minds for the tenacity to achieve victory. I mean, this is basically like the gym bro path. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, bro, we need to lift. That's this path.
That's what their transmutations talk about. Corporeum, which is body modification, and vitality.
So
the lead guys. Original.
Lead is an interesting one. Yeah. So essentially, lead is often the first refinement of many Prometheans for a very simple reason. I would actually
say it's a later one after previous ones.
I don't know. Like,
it could be the first. Like, what the hell am I?
Because the primary edict of lead is to know thyself. So it's in order to change, you must first accept who you are. Basically,
lead or gold is usually the first, traditionally.
Yeah, so basically, lead. If you're on this path, you have to accept that you're not human right now. At least, you have to everything that you basically.
Oh yeah, you're right. Lead's the first refinement.
Yeah, lead is where you start. It is the refinement that everybody has access to because it is often the first refinement because it is who you are. It is the base state. So a lot of There's some that'll get stuck in this state, but a lot of the time that a Promethean will get onto this path to do stuff like, what is me? What is the legacy that I belong to? What is stuff like that? That's oftentimes what will happen with this.
And sometimes you might go back to lead if after several attempts on other paths fail. You might have to look back into what your condition is and why those circumstances failed.
Yes. So
it's usually I go back here to look at what went wrong, and it's where I usually start.
For the gold one, I actually like this. You've seen point B, but you still need to find point A, which makes sense, right?
If you try to start in gold, you're gonna have a bad time.
You're gonna have a really bad time, which I think would be funny is because you could do some really good like Weekend at Bernie's shenanigans with that.
If you just like that's their first path, like they didn't even try lead. It's like
people friends, and it's just like fucking monster. It's like this 10-foot tall mud man is trying to give you flowers. Like he's just like flower pretty, and it's like a fucking dead rat or some shit that he's handing you because he doesn't understand.
He saw you hand gifts to people.
It's a gift. Yeah,
brought gift.
Brought gift, and it's a fucking dead
from
dog.
His mud mouth, which
it's like roadkill or some shit. Oh god, I can just imagine.
First stage arm could be very hilarious as a one shot.
Yeah, it could be.
Like if you want to go full Gonzo.
The next one is tin, which is basically the thing to remind it is that tin is not simple. Tin is not like tin isn't complex. Tin doesn't do anything on its own, really.
It's pretty brainless. This is you're just indulging in your anger.
This is literally
angry screaming.
This is the born to shit, forced to wipe. Like I guess like this is
you enter this state instantly if you start tormenting.
Yes.
And basically this is your catharsis.
This is the thing where you need other elements with tin to do stuff, right? Tin on its own is a kind of a useless metal. So they'll often do stuff like make wastelands and wreck shit. Mind you, if you're a master of tin, you can do some really interesting stuff with it.
Basically, you just indulge in the rage and like, okay, world, you fuck with me. I'm going to kill every one of you fuckers instead.
Yeah, it's also what happens. It's also the path that Sentimani, if they ever figure out a way to get back onto the path, is where they go into it.
We'll get into them.
You're going to start again on tin, because their torment has somehow got them back.
Yeah, because tin traditionally. It can lead you down the path of the Sentimani, which we'll go into, but
it can
bring them back.
Also, if you ever meet another thing, if you meet a player that wants to start out in 10, God help you.
If you meet a player that says that, look at them with some suspicion.
So, remember the guy that was on...
Grief. Look at him. Grief.
Yes. So... but here's the thing. Remember the guy at the start that was on gold? Adoni?
Oh, yeah, he goes into tin.
He goes into tin because, remember, he became grandpa, and he did it so well that he managed to actually get a wife in his old age. Then the disquiet came, and they killed him. His wife ended up dying instead of him. So now he's like, well, he's picking up the tin like another man might a gun. He took up the disquiet that ruined his life, and he used to destroy the people that had taken her from him.
When he came for them and their families, there was always a storm.
Yeah.
So because that's the thing. You took my family, I'm taking yours. He probably took them first while they watched.
Yeah, I love some of these though, which is like, Aram, you live among them, but you don't understand their pain like I do.
Oh, by the way, Elizabeth is an interesting one because she lives among.
She is a Sentimani.
Monsters. Yeah,
she was a Sentimani, basically, is what she's talking about.
Happy to just feel again. Happy to just feel again.
Yeah.
It took pain to bring them back.
And then there's bronze.
You know what? Anger and pain is still better than nothing.
Yep. Anthony is also the next one, which I like a little bit. So this is the bronze, which is that of like the idea of being protective.
The defender.
The refinement of bronze. So the ethos is to put the needs of others before your own.
Oh, and if you're wondering the role of everyone goes in the tin, this makes you feel isolation and kind of helps remind you that what you want
everybody's
to
going to end up in 10 at some point. Yeah.
Widow.
Yeah, I liked some of the other ones, right? Like I like some of the examples of this where they're talking about how like oftentimes people coming off of tin are going to go into bronze, especially if they were on copper before this.
Yeah, actually, that's really clever. Because
think about it, right?
Rage, combine it with I'm going to use what I know to help others.
Yeah, it's literally the combination of tin and copper. That's what bronze is. I keep my eyes open for others because I could not keep them for myself. The next one is a little like that's bronze is like it's pretty simple. Like
yes, the refinement, the mystics.
These guys are great because you can throw these guys into basically any chronicle. This is the it's not human. You can tell by the eyes. Let's go say hi.
Basically, you study the other creatures that go bump in the night.
I also love the illustration here.
It's not human. You guys go say hi. I'm just envisioning this. This is looking like either an unfleshed or maybe a Tammuz.
I'm thinking a Tammuz of some kind because that looks like a wood.
Yep, I'm thinking Tammuz. So I'm just envisioning him going up to a mage going, "Hey, could you tell me what this book I found means?"
Hey, bro, you gotta take a look at these sigils, man.
I found them.
Yeah.
And the mage just kind of looks at them and goes, "I've never dissected one of your kind before."
Yeah, I love some of these other ones where they're talking about like so they go in like sacred architecture is a thing that might come in. So there's actually an example too of like, oh, they actually talk about combo again.
Yep.
So combo basically like starts to look up a bunch of different stuff because they're trying to figure out that becoming human might just mean being stronger than the not humans.
Yeah, they start reading Sun Tzu, Patton, Rommel, and then eventually runs into werewolves and vampires, and
they're like, I'm gonna fight that.
I'm gonna fight it.
I'm gonna fight it.
I'm just reminded of this running gag on a show where it's like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go over there. I'm gonna fight it.
Yeah, like that sounds very Promethean. Combo is unironically a good character.
And the guy before them was like, you know, it's really weird. Some humans can just transmogrify themselves. So he starts studying werewolves. Like, why are these humans turning into dog people?
And the reason why, by the way, is because they ate him. That's why he's.
And then the werewolves are like, this thing tastes like dog shit.
Yeah.
And let's move on to the Cathars.
Can I at least talk about the stereotypes here because some of these are really amazing. Arum, are so much more fascinating. Yes, we've done that next for lead, which I love. Centimani is basically like they're different enough to take interest in after all.
And yes, this is a path that can lead you towards the path of flux. That's one of the problems with Argent, since their curiosity can be the downfall, and that is the virtue they teach.
Yeah, so Cobalt is the path of impurity. Basically, the idea is that I have weaknesses, and I must understand that people are not perfect.
And that's why what they do is they study the. I've been listening to his plan on how he's going to kill his wife for an hour. It's fascinating.
It's fascinating. Yep.
Basically, they analyze the others that they look at, and they try to see where things go wrong.
Yeah.
And they do this to themselves too. They're a lot of unfleshed pretty quickly go to this path.
I would not be surprised if they do. Yeah, they also talk about like how some of the roles is stuff like the deviant, where they're gonna do all the vice and the sin and everything that's bad
that's the thing.
because they need to understand that.
Yeah, you could. That's the thing. You don't have to just point it out and say why it's wrong. You could indulge in it, like, driving while drunk seems to cause problems. Let's see what it's like firsthand.
Oh, by the way, remember that little kid, Promethean?
Yeah.
Dorothea? Well, she considered the crack den to be her laboratory.
Yeah?
So she watched them all taking fucking crack and smiling. Like,
and dying the slow death, the same slow death.
Yeah.
Their pain each day, and it cleansed and
strengthened her. Oh my god, that's creepy.
I think that's a sign of failing the path, though.
Listen to this. Marv took blow after blow, barely making an effort to defend himself. He relished the pain, wallowing in it.
It's only moments like that that his mismatched body felt alive.
Yeah, Marv, that's the guy with the glass chest.
Yeah, I don't think that's healthy, bro.
It's not, but it's definitely
Cooperm is not a healthy path, but it's not. It's not a bad approach to at least go on it for a while.
Like, you have to go onto it for a while. Like, that's the point. It's
because the more
and a devotion.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this. I'm just sorry. What needs to say this? It feels like there's too many. Like it. I guess they all have their thing, but like it kind of feels like there's a lot. Like it feels like they're getting.
We're almost done. There's literally just.
We're almost done. But here's the thing, though, Greg. The point of these are, and we'll get into it. The New Dawn. You don't have to take all the paths. It's just a good idea to at least try.
Yeah. So the next one is Mercurius, which is
Quicksilver.
It's more of like a discipline and a philosophy. It's literally like, let's try and figure out what makes everything tick. It's usually in the middle of the path.
Science.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Let's double the voltage and let's try again. So they're gonna do a bunch of crazy shit.
Yeah, basically, your roles are like the craftsman, the explorer, and the scientist.
This is often the one that they're going to take before they undergo one of the bigger steps on their pilgrimage, which is to create another Promethean.
Because there are milestones which make you come closer. This one teaches you resourceful.
Basically, this teaches you also, like, to be creative.
Creative, in many ways. Because that's a big thing. Humanity is often more creative than what you are. Argentum, yes, vampires exist. Can we please concentrate on the task at hand? I like that one.
Far too involved with their subjects is gold, which I think is both creepy and great.
How do you spend so much time with yourself? You accomplish
nothing. I love the Ferrum one, by the way. Lie on the table. I want to try something.
See, this is what happens when you don't account for all the variables.
Sentimani, that's kind of great, yeah.
The Phosphorum guys.
Phosphorum is like, okay, so you know how this is one of the things that people forget. And it's a thing that's hard to get for a lot of people, which is that if you live, you're going to die. It's just the truth.
This is, ever see someone burn? Have you tried being the one on fire yet?
Yeah. Like, I love this one. To the horror of their throng mates, the Lightbringer will happily charge into a burning building to snatch something precious out of the ashes. Or perhaps not, because they've never seen someone die of smoke inhalation before. Like,
and that's the thing. They might try to actually kill themselves.
Yeah, they'll do stuff like that because it's very reactive. I mean, phosphorus in and of itself is the most reactive element that I think there is.
And
we never find it in nature.
And a big thing in this is it teaches finality, finite.
Yeah, everything can end. Yeah, it's passion in one of its greatest ways. They even talk about like like watching people die in a hospital, going to a war zone, things like that. Like
to murder people.
That's very well, or just to watch people die.
They might, or just get shot.
The specific example is they want to see the look on someone's face when they snatch the gun out of their hands and point them at their head.
That one does, but you could also be the one where it's like, what's it like to get shot and fake death?
Yeah, they'll do that.
Sure, you look human, but do you feel human?
Do you really feel alive?
I even like that. Even they have standards. Even I have standards.
Yeah. Turns out there's even something that I won't try once. Like Argentium. Interviews are fine, but what's the point of talking to monsters if you never get bitten?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Great work, part 2.
Yeah. So this
Another
is the
ramble.
Start. They're talking about
Here's a nice little throng here.
That the Shadows ramble is Anthony, by the way. This is Anthony talking about and those marbles are the marbles from his creator.
I could tell you everything about dinosaurs. I can cook up a perfect batch of scrambled eggs. I can recite the best of Shakespeare by heart. Algebra, I can solve a quadratic equation in my sleep. I know how to talk to someone down from a fight if it doesn't work. I know how to strike them so hard they never want to hit a bottle or a kid over the rest of their life. It's all there, so the only file that proves I exist, police came. Took me away, took Rob from her a few weeks later.
I love this because he's talking about like how
I know
the
a
only
lot
time
of things. I just wish I knew more about me.
Like it's both really great and really sad because it's like he's talking about like I'd sign like he's talking about the only thing I knew for sure was that what they wanted on the signature lines because he'd signed it the same way he'd sign Rob's permission forms when Mom was too drunk. Like it's both really clever and kind of sad.
That's enough. I think that's one of the big themes of this book that often doesn't even get addressed in a lot of other monster books. Even most other monsters, even vampires who have to deal with their own shit with humanity, they typically at least know who they are for the most part. Not Prometheans.
Prometheans don't know.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and then they're gonna the next section is a bit about
the steps. Basically, like in alchemy, there's a series of steps where you refine the base lead in order to form gold.
Yeah, so they talk a bit about how the creation process of a Promethean begins, which is there's a couple of different things, right? So first off, there's demiurges. Demiurges are basically someone that just for whatever fucking reason makes a Promethean. If they're human, it's called a demiurge.
What about mages? Do they count as human?
Mages sort of can, but usually don't.
But basically, because of their awakened status, they don't.
They can, but
I think there was but Azoth itself doesn't usually flow through them because of their changed perception on reality.
Well, because they're connected to the supernal realms, they're not connected to the divine fire.
Well, it's not even that. It's basically because they've connected, they've awoken. It's a lot harder for the divine fire to work through.
They're woke as fuck, man. Like that's the best way to put it. Like mages are woke as fuck.
And that I mean, it is possible for them still. It's just there's never been an example. I think.
And whatever they created, I'd guess it'd be an extempore.
Anthony is a tulpa. I think, therefore, I am created. Extempore sounds like an equation variable waiting to be equalized.
they are, yeah. I love Anthony, by the way.
Anthony is probably the most interesting of the lot.
I think Anthony is one of the best examples of an extempore that really.
Because most people will think, oh yeah, like Pele walks, but no.
No, it's literally the older brother a kid wished he had.
Which is great. By the way, the back on it. So demiurges are the people that basically, in a fit of passion and obsession, traditionally, create the Promethean, usually to fulfill something.
Like a kid they never had, a lover.
A kid they never had. That's egalitarian, but like it can also just be anything
I need to make somebody. I need to do that. So
like a servant could be a Tammuz. Like I need someone to help work the farm, or like this farm. Like my best friend died and I need them back. It's usually something like that, and the divine fire works through them, and they look up rituals and obsession, and they find it. Now, as for the Prometheans, when they do this, it's called the genitor, and that's why extempore. They're not sure if they can make it because their creation is just so. They might not even know the conditions behind that.
Yeah. Now that being said, they probably can anyway because they still have the divine fire.
Think about it like this: I think Anthony could easily create a new lineage. You just have to dream hard enough on the person you need.
Now that's possible. Or Anthony could create another person similar to how he created himself, or he could create a Promethean as a constructed one. Literally like a toy man come to life.
And this is
Like-
this is actually an important step in your refinement, and you gain like amazing abilities by doing this, and you become closer to human. It is called multiplicatio.
Yeah, you need to become to become
Living
human. You
being-
must make another one of yourself.
Yeah, humans procreate.
Yeah, to fuck is to be human. So you need to experience that in a way.
And the thing about demiurges is they can come from any person can be demiurge. Like you can get like your equivalent of Tony Stark who builds like a robot waifu, or you can get crazy Jimmy who the fucking drunk multiple liver failured hobo building you out of scrap pans and fucking laundromat.
Be like a Terminator. He's like, "This is my Terminator," or whatever, and you're now a Promethean.
And both of them have the same qualities as an unfleshed.
Yeah, they're both unfleshed, but they might not necessarily
the demiurge worked through different material.
Yes. Which is another example of like a golem of Prague could be unfleshed or temused. But at the same time, it matters with what they're created to be.
With
too,
the logic,
right?
Yeah. It actually goes into that. Basically, constructed versus unfleshed. The golem of Prague could be either or, but intent is what matters.
Yeah.
Basically,
like Galatea.
Galatea was designed to be my wife.
So she's not going to be unfleshed. She's by her very nature cannot be.
The bodyguard, like a bodyguard, which is a person, or
which could also be more or less than a person, you know,
or the protector.
There's also like examples of like, well, you can decide. I mean, a creature that is stitched together from a bunch of other bodies might actually be might be an unfleshed, because they weren't made to be
they weren't made to be human. They were made to be
just something else,
like a crash test dummy or something.
Yeah. So the first thing that they talk about too is the once a Promethean is born, air quotes here because it's not really true, is that they basically slowly go through the same process that a human baby would in many ways, where they're basically sponges, mentally speaking. However, part of the problem is that they have a physical form that's not going to change really. So usually though, they're going to have disfigurements, which is examples of their inhumanity. For example, they won't age, which also, of course, this is kind of weird, but like then there's like other issues like you might have an old man's heart and a young man's body. Things like that. Now, that being said, usually what's going to happen is that the Azoth kind of smooths that shit over. So you look normal for the most part. But when you start using that, the pyros, the fire itself,
it
then
burns away your disguise.
Yeah.
And there's also a postpartum, basically not yet aware of the drawbacks of life. Things seem new and interesting. They can make mistakes like what a child would. But because they're 7-foot tall monstrosities, the mistakes multiply.
They can also like a demiurge is usually going to start to see. This is where the disquiet starts to kick in, because this shouldn't be this isn't what I wanted.
This isn't
right.
This wasn't what I made.
Yeah. And a genitor is either like, oh, it's like a little kid. Oh, this is great. Or, oh my god, what did I fucking make?
Like,
Jesus, I
no,
fucked up.
I'm looking at what I was like. This is awful.
Yeah, I like this section here, by the way, the next one. They have a talk about why humans, really, like, why Prometheans might be, I guess you could say transsexual, but like that's the weird thing about them. They really don't have a gender, right?
Not really.
Like they even talk about this, where it's like the usual avenues to say that I'm just not comfortable with what sex I am really isn't a thing that Prometheans can change. in many ways.
Stuck
like
with it, yeah. At least until
they're
they
kind of
enter
stuck
New
with
Dawn.
it. There's ways to change their form, of course, but once they achieve the New Dawn, they probably will become whatever sex or gender they want to be, because that's who they are,
By the
even if
way,
their physical
here's a
body isn't
great
like that.
example of disquiet. Day 38. My creation continues to assert his independence. I wish nothing but the best for the boy, may as well admit it. He is my boy. I've not just created a robot, I've created a life. The son I could never have. That's how I've been justifying his existence. I regret to say that I find the boy strangely uncomfortable. His questions about his own autonomy, his creation, something he calls the fire that burns where my heart should be. Such strange, stupid questions from a thing I gave life. I find myself upset at everything he does. He's taken an interest in blues music, and while I was never a fan, I now despise it in ways I never
thought possible.
This is Dr. Light.
Yeah,
Thomas L.
Yep.
That's blues.
Yep.
He hates so that's why Proto Man left.
Yeah.
Remember, there are no heroes left in man. Mankind is doomed.
So
I fucking
you know, you say that, but now you just tempted me to, if I ever run a Prometheans game, you will have a Sentimani blues.
But yes, so basically, right. That's the kind of the summary of that. So disquiet is basically,
I love the boy, but I hate the thing. I fear may break it for good.
But yeah, so then comes what's known as the Great Work or the Pilgrimage. As soon as they kind of realize that, oh, this is how it is. So there's a couple of ways that you can be guided along the pilgrimage.
Are left alone, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that can probably happen. So the first thing that happens is when you decide that you want to be human, is you get your first vision of what's known as ellipsis, basically hope.
Which is actually a nod to the Pandora's box. You open it, all falls in the world.
Basically, the first refinement, the first thing that you understand is there's
more to myself that can be made.
And the azothic memory is what will provide it. Because remember, the azothic memory is that of what all Prometheans will be. So they become that's their first step on the pilgrimage. And you know where you're starting, and you know where you're going to be at the end of it. At the end of it, you're going to be human. The problem is finding the way to do that.
And I think to get to Elpis, you have to actually be left alone.
Yeah, you have to seek it. Basically,
what happens is you have to have a torment. You have to actually go into tin for a bit, without even knowing it.
Yeah, so they go down into the talk about milestones. So there's a difference between individual. There's three varieties, though usually the student of lead is the one that will distinguish them. So universal, prescribed, and instinctive. Universal is basically every Promethean is going to have it. It's stuff about the human condition itself. For example, multiplicatio is the milestone that basically every Promethean knows they're going to have to do. They're going to have to create something else. They're going to have to do something new. But the problem is, you can just create something, but it might not actually apply to what you need because you're not refined enough to understand what you're doing, if you know what I mean. So, like, a Promethean might create multiple other Prometheans and still not achieve this milestone because they haven't created a new life necessarily in the terms that they understand it to become human. They're just doing something, right?
They're doing something without understanding.
Right. The point of a milestone is to understand it. There's also the fact is that then there's like prescribed milestones. They're inherent to humanity, but they're not inherent to becoming human. So stuff like love, loss, feelings, emotions, all this other stuff, it's not exactly like you might think of it, but you might not understand it necessarily. And then instinctive are the unique ones to every Promethean. Like, I understood somebody before, or I did something unique to myself and my condition. And it's also kind of a hard one to define. So, but when they hit a milestone, right, they fucking know it because the azothic memory goes, you did it, You're doing it. Keep going. Come on, you can do it.
Not only that, but they actually feel more complete. And
yes,
they
it starts to
come
complete
closer
the
to
soul. It's basically
the soul. You start to generate an actual soul.
That's what I mean. Like you're starting you're stepping on
tempering
the path
the divine fire into something closer to that of soul.
Yeah. Now that being said, there's problems with this. This is the impurities, right? This is the disquiet in the wasteland. So a Frankenstein, for example, their disquiet is anger. They will make people mad. They will make people uncontrollable, and then those people are going to drive you out with pitchforks and torches and pitchforks.
Yeah, like from the movie, if you've seen the movie.
Yeah. Olgans will basically create spirit
paranoia.
traps.
Not only paranoia, but like hauntings in a way.
Yeah. No, they'll basically become.
Which is why werewolves might actually come in to kick their ass, because if they stay somewhere too long, they weaken that border between.
They create the worst sort of nightmare for any werewolf, which is that, oh fuck, the spirits are coming over the border.
This guy actively shreds the reality border.
I love the Tammuz one, which is like they just get really fucking depressed.
Well, not just them, but everyone around them experiences depression and listlessness.
Yeah.
Basically, you lose the point of anything.
Yeah, it's the most emo. Even their wasteland is emo as fuck.
Dark clouds, overrun with vermin.
Yeah, I love it. That's fun. So the wasteland for an Siren though is literally like life is meaningless.
Yep, like becomes the soil flowers begin to die. On top of that, people begin to start blaming them. For their problems, because they're so clearly so uncaring.
Yeah, Galatide is a fun one, which is obsession, as we mentioned before. But their wasteland is passionate for the environment. Basically, goes like environment goes haywire. Like it's suddenly very cold, very hot. Life goes everywhere, or all life around you dies. Whatever. It's basically like everything goes into overdrive.
I like the unfleshed. Basically, they the people around them begin treating others like menials.
Yes, peon. And a wasteland basically creates hierarchies out of nowhere. Like predatory animals kill everything and start killing each other, or stronger plants start killing off other plants, things like that. Extempores are of course unique.
Like the I don't know, like Tony's one might actually be causing horrible nightmares and
probably
insomnia.
Yeah.
While the guy with the desert, he might cause the area around to dry out and people to just start hoarding, maybe.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple of ways to get rid of a wasteland, right? The first one is just leave.
Which
eventually
it's
going to fade away. Now, the second way is
Firestorm.
Is the firestorm. Now, a firestorm is basically the divine fire has come down into an area. Now, this can be good for an area, but it can also be horrifically bad, like Pompeii or Mount St. Helens or the Great Fire of London,
or the what was it, the firestorms of Dresden.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? But the thing about a firestorm is a firestorm, while incredibly destructive, can also bring good things out of it. You know?
Where destruction only paves the way for something new.
Yes.
And they also mentioned something that rarely appears and they're really weird, the Kashmal, which basically are the biblical depictions of angels.
Yes.
Are we getting into the God Machine?
Yeah. No. By the way, we're getting into the guy that's talking about it.
Who, the narrator?
No, when the next page beyond the firestorm stuff. A community of outcasts, where they're talking about themselves.
What happens is
this is the guy at the asylum that I was remembering.
Yeah, but before then, basically another reason throngs are useful are the different natures of each created. If it's the batch of like the same type, it amplifies and quickens the disquiet in wasteland forming.
Yeah.
But if you get a bunch of them, it actually noticeably slows it down.
Of course, if they all stay in an area for a long time, it's going to create a fucking crazy wasteland.
The worst type. It just takes noticeably longer because the Azoth gets confused and can't express itself quickly.
Yeah, so Community of Outcasts. By the way, the next one, I love this. This is the one with the fucking the asylum guy.
I figured it out. It took me months, and this place is a hellhole, and they feed me mush, and my teeth are getting loose.
Holy shit, I've got it. A lot of them are like me. They hate what they are, and they're trying to change it. The people in this place, they're doing alchemy. The pills they take are the ingredients, and the group in the talks is the process. It's not just me that wants to change. Damn it, I wish I could tell them, but I can't. They have to figure it out like I did. Bye, guys. I love you. Be strong.
Well, now let's look at the hobo marks.
Yeah, the hobo marks are great. This is actually based off of real life hobo marks, by the way.
Yep. Safe camp. Hold your tongue. Go. Get out fast. Keep away. Straight ahead. Good water.
Man with a gun is almost identical to the one used in actual hobo sign, by the way.
The gun, I like that. Wealthy gentleman, wasteland. Afraid. Ghosts here. Rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
Pandorans about. This is the place.
Is the place in bad water.
They should have one like beware of vampire.
Yeah.
That probably gets rough. That probably gets put in with ghost here.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's what probably ghost here is the basic sign for those who are
They also talk about Prometheans taking on roles as like ideas. Like, I'm going to emulate a person. But this also, they talk about how a throng might brand themselves together to try to achieve the great work all together.
It's either it's either none of us or all of us.
Yeah, basically, which is great, and it helps with disquiet, and it helps with wastelands, and it helps them resist torment. But it's harder now for everybody to do it, because it also makes everybody understand each other way differently, like emotional connections, like actual emotional empathy connection in like a supernatural sense.
By the way, the roles basically you fake it until you understand that purpose.
Yeah. I just love. I have to go back to this motherfucker.
It's studying how people work, and I like that.
Yeah, I have to go back to the guy in the asylum, right? It's basically that's what he realized.
Even humans can be like us, dude. Check it out.
Yeah, like check it out. Like look at this. I also love this picture on the next page of the they talk about vitriol, right? Which is they're talking about how essentially vitriol is a highly reactive substance made from epiphany and strife that causes radical changes in a Promethean's composition. So this is basically
your mutated Azoth.
Yeah.
It comes closer and closer to prompt criticality, becoming soul.
Yes. So the thing is that this is the more vitriol you get, the closer you're getting. Because again, you're a cauldron, right? So the next one, I love this fucking Frankenstein with a fucking violin and a coffee house.
It's great. But you know what's really awful? It's right around the time where they talk about their version of Amaranth, which, yes, the Prometheans can do this. It's usually Centimani, who basically want to stop others from actually achieving what they couldn't. Or know, what they see as weaker. Or Pilgrim, who's like, fuck you, I did all the steps, fuck you! And they essentially rip out all of your
experience that you got from that refinement. This is all of your refined epiphanies and feelings and things like that.
And they try to absorb it.
Yep. It's not good. The next thing is Epithymus' folly. This is what happens when you're not ready to create a Promethean.
Yes, these are the Pandorans we mentioned.
These are Pandorans. They are beings that are not truly alive nor truly inanimate. They're pure flux and base flesh. They exist only to feed, and they feed only on pyros. Which, congratulations, that's what Prometheans are made out of.
Yeah, they're basically Promethean vampires. So here's what happens. This is how they're created. There's usually 2 to 3 reasons how they become.
Yeah.
The first is you just don't plain have the life experience, the vitriol needed.
Yeah, you don't understand how to create it, and you're trying to create something that you really aren't ready for.
This is usually a fairly, maybe not fairly new, but they get the vision of multiplicatio, and they think, I think I can do this.
I can do that.
But the problem is they don't have the life experiences, and their soul isn't human enough.
They haven't refined themselves enough. They haven't cultivated enough to do
experience
it yet.
to kind of create a quasi soul, because you kind of need something like that. It needs a starter. Yeah. And because of that, the Azoth goes in and it just disintegrates into flux, and the creation you've created falls apart into a variety of monsters.
Like, the hands will fall off and become little fucking tentacle monsters that'll run around and try to fucking strangle people.
That's
and
version
things like
1.
That.
Version 2 is you actually do have the experience, but the problem is you have to essentially split the lightning.
Yeah.
That's a big step when you create. You have to split the lightning, and if you don't do it right...
You have to split off a bit of your own divine fire.
And you have to make sure that it's pure, because because all Azoth emits some flux.
Yeah, like sometimes it's just bad luck too.
And that's
like,
the third one. The third is everything was perfect. You studied. You made darn sure you've actually recreated it partially before.
But for whatever reason, like,
one
it might
in a million chance.
The moon was
the dice hate you. The dice hate you.
The dice hate you. Yeah.
In reality, it's the dice hate you. But in this case, either you did it in the wrong place. Like, let's say you did it where the spirit realm is weak as an Olgan. Oopsie doopsie. Or,
like, you might not have known that. Like, everything else is perfect. It's just one small factor creates it.
Or in this case, you didn't get the right voltage from the lightning bolt as a Frankenstein. You're in the high place. You have the equipment. You even copied from the fucking movie. Everything looks perfect. You even have the goddamn coat and the goggles. Perfect.
This should be perfect.
But the voltage was not right.
Like, you fucked up in some way. Like, there was
no, you didn't fuck up. What happened was the lightning struck, but it wasn't a direct hit, and the voltage was insufficient or over sufficient.
Yeah. Now, the next thing to remember is that Prometheans have, like, the Pandorans have an even worse form. It's called the Sublimati. This book doesn't go too deep into them, but basically imagine it's a Promethean that is also a Pandoran.
So basically, here's what happens. Pandorans start as the body breaks apart into a variety of creatures, and they start sucking away. They start killing each other like sharks and squids do in the womb, until there's like a couple left. Usually, as they eat more pyros, they can use it to manifest and mutate more and more.
But they're also, like, just
falling apart rapidly, because flux is naturally unstable. It's like watching something decay in real time, like really fast.
Also, Pandorans by their nature do not have intelligence. They're basically ravenous monsters. Sublimati have intelligence, and they're also hungry.
Sublimati are what happened when a Pandoran absorbs enough Azoth to effectively kickstart its own twisted version of process.
Yeah.
They have the full mentality, but they're being made out of completely corrupted crap. They can never... Here's the fucked up thing. I know there's one Sublimatus that actually treats themselves like on the pilgrimage. They actually try to do it, but they can't. It's just not in their ability. And that's because they're pure flux. They literally can't. But he doesn't know that. It's a Sublimatus that thinks they can do the New Dawn. Usually by stealing the vitriol from others. It's an interesting take.
Yeah,
I know. There's a great splat book that goes into the variety of Sublimati and like actual Pandoran, because there's noteworthy Pandorans. Like, I think the Jersey Devils treated as like a Pandoran that went wrong.
That makes sense. They also, I should also mention that Sintamani are not Pandorans. Sintamani are a bit different. They're Prometheans that have embraced the flux.
Basically,
like they've given up on the pilgrimage.
They've decided that the agony of existence is too much, and they just take refuge in the chaos.
Now, they go into a little bit and they talk about, like, the path of how you refine yourself into a Promethean and all that, and then, like, the structure of it, of the soul and all that. But they also give it a little bit about the God machine. Yeah, they talk a little bit about the God machine but the God Machine is basically like you can take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter.
Yep, take it or leave it. But the steps are calcinato, oxidizing, the birth of the mortar that later becomes the shell.
Crystallization, which is development of the mortal and the person that will be like infanthood, whatever else. Fixato, which is the fixation, which the mortal comes into their own, which is usually adulthood or whatever else.
And Solutio.
Or physical, and Solutio, which is you fucking died. Now, the start of being a Promethean is the preparation of the corpse or the material into what will become the Promethean. For example, the Tammuz and the Galateans do not need to be ripped apart. Frankenstein's, Osirians, and Ulgans, the body has to be dismembered.
Yeah, and actually, with the case of the Tammuz and the Galateans, you can actually sculpt rather than...
Yes, you can sculpt. You could sort of do it for the Frankensteins, because it would literally
partially,
just be a
but they still need to be partially human.
Yeah, they still need bodies. Osirians is sort of in a similar position where you just need the body to remove a part from the body to be.
Yeah, you can just have one guy just remove like the pinky finger or something.
Yeah, or the dick. The dick is the most common one.
Dick is most common because that's, the more times you change the ritual, the more likely it's gonna fuck up.
Yeah. So the next bit then is distillation, which is when the Azoth enters the body.
And this is when Pandorans are made if you fuck it up.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. It can just fail. It doesn't necessarily mean a Pandoran's going to be created.
You just waste the energy and it bleeds away.
And it's like, well, back to the drawing board on that one. We fucked up.
And actually, this is interesting because you can have Pandorans being created by actual demiurges instead.
This can happen. It doesn't end well. Then there's the next section, which is the start of the
the character's goal
yes, which is sublimation, which is sublimato, then division, which is basically that you understand that every Promethean must either go through copper or tin because or experience a lot of torment or disquiet. The next part of it is the finding companionship, which is certaatio, which is tentatively affixed, basically.
And usually that's why throngs are formed.
It's helping another, basically, is a good way to put it. Fermentation is the next one, which is the start of creating vitriol. Multiplicato is the next to last step on the process, which is to create division.
And that's why if you try to do that at when you're still at Serratio, you're gonna screw it up.
Or even worse, at separatio. Think about it like that.
Oh no, that's even worse.
The next bit is the forward projection, the last stage of the pilgrimage, which is where you reach the new dawn. So simple as that, right? Not exactly, but hey, it works. Now, the next thing to remember is that there's a lot of other bits for let's get to the last bit of this chapter, which is
Athenors,
sort of the last.
Which is your kind of like save file.
Yeah, an Athenor is basically your, hey, I made this to remember what I did. I mean, it's important to be, if you make one to be used by another, is to say, hey, here's how I did this. Well, it's important, right?
I mean, it is important because wasting your vitriol, wasting your life experience doing that.
Because you're going to have to do it all again. Now, you know how to do it again, but someone else might not.
Yeah, it's a good teaching aid, but for you, it's also, you might have to do it in a new way.
Yeah.
So you teach others while relearning in a new way.
And it also is part of the Azothic memory. That's the other thing about this, is it's literally the most selfless thing you can do is to create a true Athenor.
And then there's also Jovian ones, which are accidental.
Accidental and usually negative.
Yep.
The most dangerous, though, are the firestorm catalysts, which cause firestorms. Yeah, there's a few other examples, but the next one is the New Dawn,
which is the very important element.
Yeah. At the end of the pilgrimage lies the New Dawn.
By the way, it is getting late, but we can keep going.
We can finish this section of it. Yeah.
This
the
is a
New
big
Dawn
thing about this.
is a big thing, right? Now, here's the thing, right? to be at the new dawn, if a Promethean's journey was short and succinct, it simply means that they passed all the necessary milestones in quick order. Any attempt to outright force the new dawn by ritual or meditation is doomed to failure unless trying to force it was the last milestone you needed to pass. For some Prometheans, they need to force it. They have to do it that way. Most of the time, though, it doesn't. More often than not,
if they're lucky, it gives them a vision that gives them hints on what to do.
If they're unlucky, it creates a firestorm.
And hurts themselves, too.
Yes. The thing is that you know instinctively that the new dawn is on the horizon. Like, you know it's coming when you're getting close. You must then choose whether to accept it or not, which is an interesting thing about it. You can choose not to become human at this point. Maybe because you think you need to do some more stuff because you can't do this while you're human, for example.
Or there might be because of your throng and you made that pact. All or none.
All or none. And you have to all be able to somehow reach that at a point. Your hesitation could also be an existential question. I like this point. There's some Prometheans who simply find that the idea of humanity itself, the ideal, is what they were seeking, not becoming human itself.
And then last but not least, is that fear like, will I remember?
Yes. Now, that's the thing, is that if you don't reach the new dawn this time, you can find it again. That's the thing. You must also always remember that you have to risk it to get it. You have to risk everything to reach it.
Because, yeah, that's the thing. You lose a lot if you reach and it fails.
Yep.
Oh, hey, it's Ella's ramble, by the way. Just
I like it. It's even in like text. I'm Ela, your integrated language algorithm. That's where her name comes from, which I like that little detail. I remember being copied. I remember being erased. I would copy myself over and over to be safe. The more copies and the less me each one would be.
But both of those were me.
Yeah, I like Ela's ramble. It's very good.
Disintegrated little by little, forgetting myself. Wow. I actually like that.
Yeah.
Backups too, just in case, so multiplicatio.
Yeah. But one isn't just enough. I'll make backups too, just in case. Her bodies is what she's talking about, not herself.
And then we get into the character creation, which is pretty cool, but we can just save that for
We'll skip that. It's very similar to basically every other character creation for World of Darkness.
It does, but like the thing is, it's
the
also
New World
like
of Darkness. But then they add in a couple of other like little bits where they talk about here's your waypoints. Here's some talks about this, like courage, inspiration, fury, joy, torments is stuff like being awkward, and
I finally got it out.
Congratulations. I think let's go to just as
let's go to, he says, at 2.5 hours in the stream.
I know, but we had to get through all that to get to this. So they've got a couple of interesting setting bits.
LP days and tournaments.
I think the next one we should take a look at though is milestones, which is in the chapter 7 storytelling. But we can also go into because there's a lot of stuff in this book. I didn't want to.
There is. That's why I kind of want to. The thing is, because there's so much.
Do you want to just stop here?
I kind of wanted to, and you just kept trying to. Yeah, let's.
Sorry,
just stop here.
I wanted to finish that second chapter.
It's not happening. There's so much stuff in here that's really good.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's very hard to stop with this book.
Like, I'm only stopping because I notice what time it is, and I know that at least half of us, well, actually only one of us, 2 of us maybe, need to go to sleep at some point.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
But yeah, milestone. They talk about milestones in that chapter. We might go into that later. They even talk about what's the new dawn actually like what's going on with stuff like that. They talk about.
Oh God, it's gone down my throat. I'm sorry, Greg. I couldn't see it.
Yeah, I spent the last like 10 minutes choking on something.
Oh fuck!
Oh shit!
Greg,
it was a Pandora and it tried to kill him.
No, it was a piece of rice.
Oh God.
It was just stuck in my throat, and I just.
Oh, I hate that.
What a great way to end this chat. With a man
I think I muted myself.
With a man almost dying. This is how this stream ends.
Well, hey, don't worry. If Greg did die, we could bring him back as a created.
No. Then we gotta play Geist.
One question I do want to ask before you go. So what's the difference between a Promethean and a Deviant exactly?
Well, for one thing, Deviants they never really died. They were either brought back to life, or they were never died. Basically, that's the thing.
A Promethean always comes from either a non-living source in general, or from a dead body stapled and nailed together.
Yeah.
Also,
Deviant is usually a once-in-a-gajillion freak who is created.
Also, Prometheans seek humanity. They seek humanity.
That's a big major difference.
They also
Deviants
are powered by Azoth.
Demons are still kind of human, I guess is the best way to put it.
Deviants, not demons.
I said deviants. Did I say demons?
You said demon. You said demon.
Fuck.
Learn how to alliterate, motherfucker.
Hey, speaking of demons, I have an interest on time sharing your soul, so that I can borrow it for a great task for the great value of $1,000
per use.
Per use.
Give me a few days.
But no, deviants they can be human. They actually perfectly can be, either due to genetic quirks. They have just unique abilities and strangeness, or they could be a creation. Like Ivan, for example, is a Promethean because Ivan was a combat robot that developed an azothic resonance.
A deviant would be
Ivan's model line. Ivan might have been a once-in-a-million freak out of his line that just gained Azoth to power him.
Yes. Now, meanwhile, a deviant would be a man that is turned into RoboCop.
Robert Cop, yeah. Or like I said, you can use Ivan's the same war robot, but no Azoth power.
But somebody stuck a human brain in it.
Some deviants aren't created; they're just freaks of nature, like the Swamp Man.
Or King Kong. You can have Ape as a deviant.
Oh my God, Harambe has come back for revenge.
You could.
Okay, real question: would aliens count as deviants?
I don't.
That's the thing, because I could have sworn White Wolf did want to make an alien book, and it's a shame they never got around to doing it. Because I think you can do some interesting alien books.
They made Beast instead.
Plus, to be honest, a alien book would be kind of. I don't think you could do it really, really well. But
I mean, they are reaching already by kind of making deviants, but it sounds at least interesting.
Deviant at least sounds fun.
I think aliens could also be fun, but that's just me.
Listen, as long as Deviants doesn't go on to a diatribe about how sexual assault survivors deserve it, I think we'll be okay.
Hey, remember how beasts like to creep on changelings? That's awful. I hate it.
Hey, remember how beasts just were awful, terrible people? And you
remember how beasts got a splat book where they featured during the Reconstruction era?
That wasn't just for them, the splat book. They had a bit during Reconstruction era. The worst thing about it is
better.
Okay, the worst thing about that, we had Greg and I had a long talk about this section. The worst thing about it is that it had a very, very good historical look at this era of American history and this and the sort of the things that were going on and the culture of it and all of that shit. The thing is that they put it with Beast.
Hey, remember when the stream was about good books?
Yeah, well, it's over. Well,
it's pretty much over. Yeah,
it's pretty much over. But yeah, so again, I highly recommend you go and you buy Promethean. I really recommend you go and buy this book because it is.
I have to second that because this is besides arguably Vampire the Masquerade, this is kind of my favorite. And Chronicles of Darkness, this is arguably my favorite. It ties with Hunter. It ties with Hunter for me, in that this is easily my favorite of them, besides Hunter, Hunter the Vigil.
Yeah, hey, let's go buy that book. It's
Werewolf
really
is still better. I'm Team Jacob, you all. I'm never gonna
you
give
mean
it
Forsaken or the Apocalypse? Because I can understand Forsaken.
I like both because I'm a weirdo and I like turning shit up.
Okay, we're okay, Ted Turner. But with that in mind, I think we'll sign off. Have a wonderful night, and I'm glad we talked about a good book and didn't have to talk about Thirsty Sword.
I'm back next week, you all. Don't
worry. If I have my way, we'll do Street Fighter the RPG before that.
I'm back next week, you all, so we can do our reading of Princess
you're right, because technically this does count for Pride Month because of the identity.
Oh my god.
This is our Pride Month book.
We did it!
This will save you.
I don't have to do this until we're desperate. Yes.
This book is.
You don't have to do
this book is quintessentially LGBTQ+.
I know I messed that up. But who cares? I mean, really, any White Wolf book is very yay for the gay, but like this book especially does cover a lot
because it's all about identity.
Yeah, it is all about identity.
Covers the T. It easily covers the T.
It covers the T. It covers the L. It covers the G. It covers the Q. It covers the fucking everything.
Yeah. All right. I don't have
to.
We don't have to do Thirsty Sword Lesbians.
We're going to eventually. We're going to eventually because obviously, but. Yeah,
this is our Pride Month. This is Happy Pride Month, everybody. This is our reminder that it's okay to be gay.
Yes.
Play the fucking YMCA song.
Play the YMCA song and play a giant 10-foot tall mud monster giving roses to your loved ones as they scream at you and try to kill you with pitchforks.
Good night, y'all.
Come back next week, you all, for our reading of Princess the Hopeful.
God, no.
No.
Oh, God,
no. We are not doing Princess the Hopeful. We are not discussing fan splats here. Fan splats can burn in a fire.
What about Leviathan?
I will fucking cut you, Biggie.
I want to do Alien the Abduction.
Are we killing... I think we're killing Greg.
Not y'all.